Hi, everybody, and welcome. I'm Aurora. This class is called Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, and today is Level 1, Lesson 15. For people who are new, welcome, 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 new students. This class is really a blended amalgamation of both Level 1 and Level 2. I used to separate everyone out and make people first go through Level 1 and then complete that and then do Level 2 as like the advanced. But as our spiritual development and so many other aspects became more like internally urgent, I was like, we don't have time to mess around here. I'm going to make sure that everybody who is an enrolled student or participant can get access to all of the information at once and not have to go through this laborious formal process. So when people sign on now, and I've had a few new people sign up, even though right now we're lesson 15 of like a 20-part series, so you can tell we're kind of coming into the home stretch. You can go through the curriculum in a way that makes sense to you in your development right now, because usually what makes the most sense is start at the beginning at lesson 1 and then go all the way through. But my information about, let me just grab my sculpture over here. My information about flying rainbow lasagna. Oh, but you gotta, guys, observe your protocol when you're coming to the meeting. Please mute yourself.
Yeah,
Please
I
mute
noticed that
yourself.
too.
Mute yourself. Please mute yourself. Mute yourself. Please mute yourself. When you're coming to the meeting, please mute yourself. Makes the most sense to start at the beginning, but my stuff about flying rainbow lasagna and DNA doesn't really show up until about lesson 11 or so, because there's so much foundational information about the language of harmonics, or this language of color, line, shape, form, movement, and texture, and musical tone. It's nonverbal language that I'm communicating into everyone. So what I did with this semester, 2025, is the first 2 to 3 weeks, I did some good intro and overview of what is lasagna and what is its significance to inspire you, so that when we then dive into the rest of the semester, you know what you're training for. You're like, I'm doing these random exercises. Like, why am I doing these exercises? Because there will be a marathon, okay? So you're doing all of the mentality and cognitive strengthening exercises that you can do in order to prepare yourself for the immersive activity known as the flying rainbow lasagna. So for anyone who's new, rewind all the way back in the playlist, check out those introductory informations there, and also be sure to check out in the whiteboards. I think, again, I don't remember the exact name, but it is FRL and DNA, and that's of level 1. So we've already got some comments. Let me just hydrate. And you guys probably don't perceive this, but Cheeky's over here playing with her toy. She's being very energetic and rather saucy, if I can tell you the truth. Okay, Chris says, firstly, thank you for having these classes and lessons for us. You're so welcome. Thank you for being a wonderful student. Says, so much tremendously valuable and oozing with knowledge. We appreciate you abundantly. Thank you very much. I learned that the soul is considered a narrative or a story. Can you give additional clarity on what DNA and the soul is? Yes. Here are other questions. Okay, before I get to your other questions, I'll start with that one. It's a great question, because when we talk here in class, I always do, let's define terms. It's just like with math, so that way we're all on the same page of knowing what we're talking about. And when humans talk about the soul, sometimes they talk about something that is like a Casper the Friendly Ghost type of thing. Like if you took me and painted me white and just kind of made me mostly translucent, that would be like my soul. But I don't think of it in that form. I think of the soul as an abstraction of consciousness, and that it is really the narrative story of every place that my consciousness or one's consciousness has been up until this point in the journey. And of course, each one of us, spoiler alert, comes to the ultimate culmination of inner knowledge about self, that I am God, that oneself is God. That is what each one of us learns. But we each take a unique trajectory to arrive at that inevitable conclusion. And the trajectory is the story of your life. And your life is an eternal life. So it's not just the story of who you are in one body form, but it's really who you are in all of the multiple, like from this perspective, past, future, concurrent, parallel existences, nested, Russian doll-like existences, the totality of you, that's your soul. And you grow and evolve as you go through life experiences on all these various different realms or dimensional planes. You grow and evolve. And that is also the growth or accretion of light, the creation of your light body and your coherent light body. And that will be part of our curriculum for today. So it's a cumulative process. And if I were to say, like, if someone lost their soul, that would be equivalent of the abdication of one's free will in the journey. That since you're a story or a narrative or accumulation of all the things that you've behaved, done, been, said, seen, and experienced in time, and if you lose control of who you are, and then something else, puppeteers you in some way, then you've pretty much lost your soul, because all of a sudden someone else has taken the stylus of authorship out of your hand, and you're no longer writing your own story, but something else is writing your story for you. So when I talk in this class, I have to grab my notebook of bad things. I hide it away while we're not in class, put it out of my energy field. But all of the bad things, a lot of this has to do with the hijacking of free will, something that takes a person cognitively away from their own perception and innate comprehension of the world, sometimes implants different behaviors than you would do, or gives you different ideas than you would ordinarily do, or overtly hijacks your neurology to send signals through your arms and legs to make you do things that you wouldn't ordinarily do. All of that is equivalent of the loss of soul. Okay, so now let's get to some of your questions. Question number 1. Oh, so wait, additional clarity on DNA. Thank you for that. I have to reread sometimes. Okay, so what I just talked about is your consciousness as it relates to soul. But now let's talk about your DNA as a molecular, so visible to the five senses realm, bridge of light between the potentials of who you are in like just your time body and the manifestation of who you are as a physicality, somatic cellular body, and into behavioralisms and matter when you are embedded in matter experiences. And so DNA represents aspects of your soul, but your DNA is not limited to your biological heritage. So I'll use me as an example. So of course, I'm a walk-in, and I came into this body when this body was like a fully formed adult in chronological adulthood. And so I have a soul journey that is an unusual flying rainbow lasagna entry into this body. But who am I, or where was I immediately, quote unquote, before this or outside of the definition of this body container? And I've talked to you about my Aurora Collective, and I've talked to you about my experiences in what I call ancient or concurrent Atlantis. Okay, so that's one aspect of my soul. This body has a genetic heritage, meaning that is connected through all of the previous ancestors of the people who made babies that turned into people. And that goes back to literally a mountain range that is in Eastern Europe that is called the Caucasus or Caucasian Mountains. I am literally a Caucasian person, or I'm in the body of a Caucasian person's body. And that's the biological heritage of this body. But I want you to know that each one of you, you're more than just your biological heritage, because my body emanates from a particular continent, but that doesn't mean that I don't have a connection or a human relation to many different other lineages and people all around the world. So let's say, this is what I'm trying to say, if a person has a biological body that originates from ancestors from Northern Europe, that doesn't mean that the only experiences your soul has had have been in Northern European bodies. No, your soul does not just go back in time along the same biological container that you're in right now, the same lineage. So the body that you're in, each one of you right now, you can follow your ancestors back to, an early progenitor, but you've been in multiple different lineages. So you have also lived as people from subcontinent of India or from Australia, indigenous people, or from South America, or from Africa, each one of us on a non-literal, non-biological level has a connection through all of the different lineages or strands of DNA that are here on this planet. That's really essential because otherwise I could be misportraying and have people think that their soul is only limited to their lineage of this particular body and lifetime. But I don't want you to think that. And also that I hope I've already blown out the concept of karma as being very, very distorted and invalid in this world as it is perceived and even as it is adjudicated. Like the lords of karma, I invalidate them. They're like, they're on their butts. Get out of here. Like kick them out their butts. Get out of here. Very silly sometimes. But because people think you're going to be sometimes the aggressor and sometimes the victim, back and forth throughout your own lineage, right? But you're not always in the same lineage. That's why it's not fair to be that way. That's why it's a very simplistic view to be like, oh yes, you're always born in the same family, and sometimes you're like, whatever, the mom hitting the kid, but sometimes then the kid grows up to be the mom hitting you, and you're the kid, and all these time loops and everything like that. No. In fact, that type of stuff is very unnatural and very unhealthy. You do not want to be continually reborn into your own lineage. No, not at all. You're supposed to have a great variety of experience. And so, no, you're not supposed to be continually victimized and victimizing the same people back and forth in endless negative time loops within one biological heritage. Just going to really put that to rest with that articulation. You are instead supposed to experience a great variety at the human buffet of experience so that you can really comprehend what it's like to live in all sorts of different places with all sorts of different culturalizations and definitions of what it is to be human. And all of that is part of like honing or sculpting yourself because, of course, living in Africa is different than living in North America, is different than living in South America. And all of these places have had vastly different cultures over vastly different times. Forgive me if I left out any of your geographic locations, as I've just been very, very broadly generalizing there. So your DNA contains only a portion of your soul of this moment. But I would also say I'm going to add in another juicy tidbit, your morphogenic field, or sometimes morphogenetic. I don't know which one is right, so I'll just admit to my ignorance. But the force field of potential that creates the molecular template for your DNA and your expression of your light. That is really an indelible aspect of yourself that I also consider to be a part of your soul. And that is very much a part of the imprint of how you will be in reality, like your shape, the polygonal shape of how you'll be shaped in reality. That's your original factory settings. So I would say that is also a part of your soul. And soul is also somewhat non-temporal identity and who you are, characteristics across time, like your eternal self. I would also describe that as soul. So first question, at what point stage does the biological container claim ownership of DNA? When does DNA start moving? That's a great question. The answer is like from the very beginning moment of conception. From the moment that I want to say the Big Bang, but it would be like the tiny minuscule bang. From the moment that the sperm and egg come together, and there is that it's like a flash of light that goes around that whole entire cellular structure that is even perceptible with your current level of Earth surface human science. They call it a zinc flash, but it's basically like a big oomph, a big energy oomph that happens in that moment. And as soon as that happens, and really the truth is the DNA never stops moving. So you have an egg with a nucleus inside of there that has DNA, and the DNA is dancing, dancing, dancing. And then you also have a sperm that is swimming up to the egg that is dancing, dancing, dancing. And they dance into each other, and then their dance patterns get together, and then they also continue dancing. So the real answer is they never have been non-dancing, they always have been dancing? These are good questions. I like them. Question number 2, what organisms claim ownership of DNA? Many, ownership of DNA, that's almost like claiming ownership over something that is decentralized, like the Bitcoin blockchain, even though I'm not a transhumanist in any way. But we all anyone who is a participant, user, or like you're a guardian of DNA. If you have DNA, you use it, you own it, it is valuable to you, it contains incredibly valuable information that does go back into antiquity, very similar to the blockchain. Like, I use that as an example because humans are always externalizing their internal biological truths, and that's sometimes good for analogies that I can use that have all of this information that is really ancient information that has been transmitted along with basic biological characteristics along the road of DNA that you carry. It is your direct motivation to keep that information pristine. You should not be like, well, what care, schmare, library, schmibrary. What do I care about the genetic library? Like, I'm using it for right now, but why do I care if my children have a pristine genetic library? Smush, smush, smush. How about I smush my genetic library? No, you should not be that way at all, even though some people have been doing different things, like these types of things, and in placing these types of things into the body that do smoosh and mush the DNA in very naughty ways that degrade it, and they make it much worse, not only for future generations, but for lateral, ongoing, concurrent generations who are around you right now, because your DNA is your music and is your song. So you have a vested interest in keeping the purity of your song, and this relates to today's curriculum as well, in that it brings you longevity and coherence. How do you stay alive? How do you continue to move forward through time? The answer is by embodying the correct harmonic patterns in your DNA and also in your ephemeral force field, your coherent light body that is around you. That when you keep your information pure and pristine, you are healthy, vital, and you can stay alive. And you may sing that song by the Bee Gees in your head, Staying Alive, if you want to. But when you are not coherent, then that's when you get unhappiness, like discomfort, decrepitude, which is like getting older, and disease and death, all the bad stuff. And that is literally because of the quality of the music that is being played. So you can comprehend that God is this incredible genius that has incepted or originated this system that is really about the motivation for each one of us as carriers of that information to keep the information pure. Because otherwise people would be like, well, hooray, let's all have like mutagens and carcinogens for breakfast. Why keep your genetic code pure? Why not crap it up with a lot of bad stuff? And the answer is because that bad stuff will then make you live a less good quality of life. And so, of course, like, I don't agree with the things that are carcinogens, mutagens, and other forms of diluting and diminishing the purity of the information that DNA carries. Let me speak like from just a clarity. Wipe all of that away with Windex and now go back to this. DNA is a semi-magical substance that is your biological connection to time. It is the most valuable information library that you could possibly imagine, in that it does contain the original information of reality. You contain that inside of you. That's part of the fabric of reality library that you have inside of you as an alive organism. It informs your existence in the world. It is like causality structure of your existence in the world. And then also you contain all of the stories and all of the integument coming forward into this moment. And some of those are biological realities about how the body works. And I've spoken about this in class before, like the switch from being like a fish that just deposits some eggs and then throws some sperm on top of there, and then poof, like you've got kids, into being a mammal, where it's a lot more complex because you have to have this special gene for being able to hold the fetus inside of the womb and have successful live birth. And that this allows for different types of complexities of experience and complexities of biology that aren't available when you just kind of like throw ingredients together in the side of a stream and hope that things will come out. And that's why they're working in large numbers. Like fish are like, like whatever, we'll try to have 1,000 eggs and then just, see if something comes out of it, right? But humans are like, no, one egg, one per month, of course. But you have to have a completely different strategy. You're working with quality, not quantity. And all of that goes back to a particular change in genes that actually happened. That was an insertion of a new gene for for mammals in general to be able to carry a fetus. It's the gene for the fertilized egg to be able to attach to the inside of the womb. It's a particular piece of information that had to be innovated or discovered in order for the greater levels of mammalian complexity of life to come forward. And each one of us holds that information inside of us. It happened evolutionary, in the world of evolutionary truth, millennia ago, but you still hold that information inside of you. And there's, of course, evidence of it all around you, not only in ourselves, but in like puppies and kittens and also human birth. So you don't want to mess up this library. It is more valuable than the library at Alexandria. And that is a great wound in human culture, that the information there was carried with continuity of consciousness for a very long amount of time. And then suddenly it was wiped out. And that was amnesia for your culture and also a causality break, because then there wouldn't be a lot of things. If you had known about a lot of that stuff, you would have been able to act differently as a culture and, grow differently as an entire, change the road of human species, is what I'm trying to say. So, there are creators of DNA that are co-creators at the divine level, who are highly, highly evolved light beings. So God, the ineffable, ephemeral presence, of course, created DNA, but also there was a group of like light being consciousnesses who also were part of the creation of DNA. It is a big, giant, universal, galactic scale art project. And when I say the creation of DNA, it was not like a very lightly held thing, like a flippant thing, like first we'll create some DNA and then we'll play badminton and then we'll, drink a glass of champagne. It was not a simple, flippant hot. It was not a hobby. It was a deep thing. And the way it was created was by like deep intention, deep passion, and also like the reverberations of like being able to, it's like having a voice to be able to sing on those levels. So it was sung in a beautiful way into being by groups of consciousness and beautiful divine intelligence. And the whole entire system is super airtight, very, very beautifully constructed, very beautifully architected, but that doesn't mean that it's invulnerable to attack. And I want to wipe away that concept also. If I say that something is eternal or incredibly architected, that doesn't mean you can take a blowtorch to the face. Like there are limits. Like with your light body, you have a diamond body, you have a light body, but that doesn't mean that you should, again, like have like a blowtorch of negativity, like burning away and corroding you. Like, no, a lot of this preservation of knowledge, preservation of consciousness, and eternal aspect of self has to do with prescience and the capacity to anticipate the blowtorch to the face so that you don't get that in your face. You are able to avoid horrific injuries and other, levels of corrosion. That's a big part of preserving yourself, is avoiding those levels of corrosion. So DNA must be protected and fostered. Foster is not a good word, but like you have to be a guardian of it in order for it to move forward. It's not fair to be like, oh, good, it's an airtight system, therefore we can pee and poop all over it. No, we should not. We should treat it like a beautiful Fabergé egg. Do you understand? Like, think about that. There are some gold artifacts that, go back, 3,000 or 5,000 years, and they're not corroded and they're gold, and gold lasts a long time. But that doesn't mean that you should roll over them with a steamroller. No, the reason why, you have these beautiful ancient artifacts is because someone was like, oh, like this thing is valuable. Let's take good care of it. let's put it like in a lighted case and, keep it in a museum. Please continue to think about your DNA in that way as a beautiful golden artifact and something that contains great value. Also, it is something that is innate to you. Like you're asking all these questions, Chris, that are really great because they're all questions about the treasures that each one of you contain inside that are your birthright. That really you came here with these things, your soul provenance, the story of your narrative of your consciousness and who you are, and also your genetic structure and who you are in this moment. These are things that are gifted to you by God, the divine presence, and they can never be taken away from you. They're indelible and they are non-transferable. So that's why I also don't get, I know this is a little bit of an aside, but let's just like gird your loins for a rant. I don't comprehend a lot of this cultural stuff that is about the selling of the soul. You're going to sell your own soul, or someone else is going to buy your soul, like some kind of stock market for souls, or you know what I mean, like marketplace for soul, like souls for sale, so fresh hot souls for sale, or that was kind of like the fish market, but maybe baseball style, like get souls here, fresh hot souls. I'm being very, very silly. But it's like a satanic concept, the idea that people that have souls would somehow sell it or sell access to it for some brief materialistic reward, but that they would lose everything that is important. You can't technically transfer a soul and you can't technically sell it, but I do comprehend what we're talking about, things like manipulation, blackmail, puppeteering, and these other aspects. And now, much more troubling as my face goes down, much more troubling, this type of stuff, these types of implants that are the ultimate in loss of self-sovereignty and loss of soul. And in this world, people have sold access to their physicality presence into their bodies using these technological fibers that I'm alluding to for Monet. And that is the loss of soul for money. That, I admit, is a thing that is really happening. So in the past, it was through blackmail and manipulation and social pressure and things like that. And maybe to a lesser extent through psychic possession or some form of ephemeral mind control. But now the mind control is industrialized, wholesale throughout the entire population, and it takes an enormous amount of inner strength to reject the mind control and to maintain one's own personal freedom, sovereignty, and your own willpower, and express your own mental patterns and your own desire and your own flight through life. Many people don't have that integrity, and some people actively tossed it all away and aligned with evil. They were like that guy in the Matrix movie who is a betrayer, and he's like, that's my betrayer's face, and he's like eating steak in the Matrix, and he's like, I don't care what I have to do to my friends, just want to have a comfortable life where I can eat steak, chomp, chomp, chomp. Some people are like that. They're like, I don't care about the provenance of my soul. I don't care about the Library of Alexandria. Implant whatever you want inside of me, not inside of me, but inside of this facetious character that I'm portraying to you right now, as long as I get to have a comfortable existence and eat steak in the Matrix. And I'm telling you, and now I'm on a full rant here, I think that's what a lot of the USAID workers were. I think that they were in alignment with the AI and with this infrastructure and with the mind state that we call the Matrix, and that they were very, very happy to act against those of us who are working for freedom and for self-knowledge and for breaking free of control structures. They love the control structures. And I also liken them to being domesticated animals who are happy to work for an overlord as long as they get their kibbles. As long as they get like pat on the head, good job, and then here are your kibbles, and that they would do that for a very long amount of time. And of course, in finding out that there has been waste and fraud and abuse, the kibble distribution network has been shut down. And then many of these people who have abdicated their own free will, participated in AI-controlled thought patterns, and been monetarily rewarded for many years in the past, all of a sudden don't have money and are upset because not supposed to just have a comfortable existence and eat steak in the Matrix. You're supposed to, you know, like kick ass and destroy all of the agents and be free and be a hero. Okay, thank you. Rant not over, just paused. But I want to get to the rest of your questions. So we want to know about what organisms claim ownership of DNA. As I was like, well, who owns DNA? Can you steal your soul? Technically, we all own DNA. So that's the real answer. Just being an inhabitant of a body with DNA means that you own the entirety of DNA, because DNA is non-local, and what affects one part of DNA in one place affects the entirety of all DNA everywhere. DNA is also a fractal reciprocal microcosm of itself. That means that you are a holistic presence who contains the entirety of the whole. And every part of you, if you were to subdivide yourself, also contains the information that refers to the entirety of the whole. But of course, if I screw up part of you, I am partially screwing up the entirety of the whole. And that is why you have to have an immune system of consciousness to make certain that there are not genetic invaders or those who come onto the blockchain unwittingly and without invitation and cause harm. Mutations like cancer are invaders. And this is actually what would have been great for level 2, lesson 15, which is all about cancer. My stuff got censored off of the YouTube platform last year. And so I still have on my Patreon the original whiteboards about cancer available to you. And I simply uploaded my lectures to my Vimeo, where I have a lot more latitude of what I can talk about. But you understand that the information that I bring forward is very intuitively accurate, and I am not trained as a medical professional, but it is valid, and it's a different way of looking at things than the mechanistic, materialistic description of disease and the origins of disease in the world. Really talk about cancer as a consciousness invader that is primarily a violator of thought form, and then secondarily a violator of the physicality structure. Need to rewind, protecting DNA from thought form invaders, because your DNA is actually a representation of a particular, like a dance of your thought patterns. Your DNA is a representation of thought patterns, and you want to be moving in healthy patterns, and then you want to affect others with your healthy patterns. Like if you're singing or if you're dancing, you affect the people around you. You want to be sending off frequencies that are frequencies of, first of all, respect, like respect of their free will, respect of their boundaries, also longevity, coherence, life affirming, life sustaining, life giving frequencies. And this is what healthy things and people do in the natural world. Healthy plants and animals and minerals. I'm sorry, I want to say animals, like animals, minerals. Healthy members of the natural world emit frequencies that are life affirming. And that's like what I talked about in energy hygiene last week. When you walk through a forest or when you are hugging and smooshing your cats and your dogs, these are life affirming frequencies, okay? But there are some organisms that are emitting the antithesis of life-affirming frequencies, and that's in their mind state, their belief system. Some of it is death cult stuff. Some of it is hatred, like just pure like cruelty and hatred. And some of it is erroneous, like atheism is erroneous at the foundation level because God is real. And God is in existence, and atheism is the non-belief in God. So it's pretty much like saying 1 + 1 does not equal 2, and that's the foundation of the belief system. And that's just when you find out that it's wrong, like it's too late. They find out that it's wrong, like, oops, like, when you get your math homework at the end of your life, they find out that they did it wrong, but oops, like too late. And then not really getting another chance because they have like believed themselves out of existence. That's a whole different teaching that I have to tell. I'm opening so many cans of worms with everything that I say. I'm like, well, that's another teaching that I have to teach you about. But basically, you have free will unless you believe yourself out of your free will. That would be believing in determinism. You are given free will, you have free will, you have DNA, and you have the ability to move your DNA. But if you program yourself to believe, I don't have free will, everyone else makes me do stuff, then that becomes your reality. A deterministic worldview is the death of the soul. So is an atheistic worldview. And an atheistic worldview is also just erroneously calibrated from the beginning because it does not recognize the existence of divinity. And your DNA contains the first, impulse that makes you be in existence is the existence of divinity. So it is pretty much abnegation of self because a person disbelieves themselves or believes themselves out of existence, using the power of one's own belief to unbelieve in oneself to the point of going out of existence. That is my less flippant, more accurate read on all of this. If you are an owner operator of DNA, you have a vested interest or a stake in the blockchain. You care about the entirety of all DNA, and all DNA affects you. And you also must be a guardian of DNA. So guardian of DNA is not only being a guardian from environmental pollutants and other things in air, food, or water, or injections that might harm DNA, like carcinogens and mutagens, but also in terms of your choice of partners for procreation. That is another form of positive gatekeeping on the DNA network. That if people do not have, or let's say potential breeding partners do not have the correct characteristics for being able to successfully breed and please the other member of their species, then they do not get to put those characteristics into the future of DNA. I'm talking about all of the mating rituals that are involved in the world. And that is from mammals to fish to even plants that have, both male and female, and that they come together in order to make a seed. There are selectivity, instead of saying mating rituals, selectivities in terms of mates. Because if it's a bird, then the bird is like, doing its mating ritual to be able to find its partner and make little baby birds and make eggs and whatever. But what about like a grain of pollen? Is a grain of pollen like doing its mating ritual? Let's say it is necessary for the correct grain of pollen to find the correct, stamen to be able to come together to make the optimum characteristics for survival for that plant, and also for the carrying on of the information library all the way back to the original plant. So this is big. When you think like, oh, that's just like a bunch of pollen flies on the wind and it just magically goes to fertilize a particular seed. Maybe it's not random. Maybe there's a lot of divine intelligence there. Maybe the very correct grain of pollen has to find exactly the correct plant to bring up that concept of DNA forward in divine harmony. And that's saying it's not random. If it's plant, it's not random. If it's a fish, it's just kind of like putting some sperm into the, side of a river and fertilizing some eggs, like just, whatever, throw them together in a blender and see if little baby fish pop out. But it's not random. Even though it's not necessarily a social mating ritual as you are used to as mammals, there is some energetic information that brings particular genetic information together in order to create the next best generation. And then in your level of complexity of organism, what you are familiar with are mating rituals, which are different behavioralisms and different ways people use to be able to find optimum partners for procreation. And it's really important to know that of all of the different physical characteristics and the like personal characteristics of who the person is, it has to be consensual. Like when you have non-volitional procreation, like if a person is bought and sold, or if they are bred, or if they are violated, if it is not a consensual partnership, then that harms DNA because it puts into the future generations characteristics that you would never agree to through consent. Consent in partnership is a huge aspect of gatekeeping for the quality of information that goes on the DNA quote unquote blockchain. Not just anybody can make a transaction on the DNA blockchain. You actually have to be a good person and please your mate, and also protect and take care of your mate, and do all of these other things that are called like being a good parent, being a good partner. And that is how you put those characteristics in. So like being a psychopathic murderer, that is not a good characteristic. You would not want to mate with that person and then make little baby psychopaths for a variety of reasons. You would not want to do that. And that's why those are largely the violators. People who are psychopathic murderers are like, no one wants to really marry them and have babies with them. So they have to find some way to try to force themselves into partnerships and procreative activities that will then keep those destabilizing characteristics going. And that's totally not what we want. So this is a call for a restoration in human dynamics towards self-sovereignty and body autonomy, especially for women, because there are still places in the world where girls are bought and sold. Before the age of 18, they are bred, they are owned, they're forced marriages, arranged marriages, procreation that cannot possibly be consensual, and it is not with someone that is of their choosing. It's because it's an older male, has money, who buys them. And that's not correct, because that guy might not be the person to put his DNA into that person. Just because you have money, you can't buy your way into DNA. Come here. We're just gonna get some hugs. Kind of a rainy day and Cheeky's not feeling that great. We just need some hugs. Good job. Cheeky, I'm still on question number 1. I haven't even started the curriculum yet. Just still on question number 1. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's finish up. I might have to bribe Cheeky. She's very bored. It's very rainy outside and she might need food. We'll see. But let me just finish up these questions. Okay, so we all have responsibility to prevent psychopaths from inserting themselves into the DNA through procreation. What organisms claim ownership of DNA? What organisms do not claim ownership of DNA? So then really anything that is purely technological is not based in DNA. Anything that is purely digital or inorganic is not based in DNA. The coherent light family that I'm about to talk to you about, that is actually a part of your own biology, is based in DNA because it is supported by and is an emanation of your own body. But something that is purely an impulse, like a group of electrons, that is technically not based in DNA. And you would also say mineral life. But please know that electrons and minerals are a part of the natural world, and DNA is a huge structure for containing information about longevity and coherence in the natural world. So they have an interest and a vested interest in keeping DNA viable. But DNA is really about like what we call the biological, cellular, somatic realm. Because it's still a little bit of a consciousness stretch for people to recognize that life can reside inside of, I have lots of crystals around here. Let me show you a really cool one. Life can reside inside of a crystal. I know this is a nice big giant one. Want to hear a fun story about this crystal? So I was living in this particular place and I had this crystal kind of on the windowsill up above the tub, right? I don't know what happened, but somehow this thing fell right down into the porcelain tub like a torpedo this far down. You can see the crystal survived unscathed. The tub had a chunk taken out of it. But luckily, the crystal did not get destroyed. But there's definitely intelligence and life force and a type of life inside of here. It's not the same as biological procreative life. And I don't have to feed it like I have to feed my dog. And I don't have to give it, a water or give it a bath the way that you would have to like help a fish or a turtle. It's a different type of life. So that must be recognized. But this type of natural crystalline creature would very much care about whether or not all of our DNA is in tune or whether it's severely out of tune with stuff like this, because it's a part of the physical, biological, healthy, vibrant world. And so things that have no vested interest in DNA would be something like my MacBook computer or a level of artificial intelligence or digital presence that is at that level of abstraction and that would not, care about the DNA library. The loss of the DNA library, if that happened, would be, I can't even put it into words, the greatest tragedy. It is my reason for being, why I am here as Flying Rainbow Lasagna, is to protect and to restore that genetic library. It has been going on across galaxies and multiple dimensions in an amount of time that is indescribably big to your present human container. It's a big thing, and it would be a huge loss if it got destroyed or hopelessly polluted. So please know that it is of the utmost importance for each one of us as organisms to protect our own body and to protect future generations and to envision the continued purity of DNA as a container. I will get to your more questions and comments. Let me do your comments now. I always wait till the end of class. I got to get on the curriculum, guys. It's been 47 minutes. Michelangelo, thank you for being here. Says, hi, Aurora. I've commented on this before. Almost every class, muscle and movement are mentioned. I barely move at all and visualize FRL. Absolutely. So thank you for that. And thank you for your contribution. Because I know Michelangelo, and I know that he is a person that has limited physical mobility of the muscular skeletal body, but a great deal of agility with DNA. And that is what really matters, that his energy form and his DNA is or are able to move and vibrate in the higher dimensional space, even if the macroscopic muscles of the physical body are not moving very much. What matters is moving in the light body or the body of pure energy. So thank you for that comment, and thank you for being a template for that experience for anybody who's here in this class who has limited mobility. That is hugely important. Thank you for being able to share that with us. Pedro says, music resonates. Does our consciousness and or timeline resonate also? Absolutely. Everything about staying alive, BG song, is mixing yourself and your own natural innate music with the larger symphony of life. And so the sun and the stars have music. The earth and the planets have music when they're healthy. They're like strings on the guitar of the solar system, but you have a lot of broken strings in this solar system. That's why you're not even aware of like what it sounds like to be in a good band, because you haven't been in a good band for a very long amount of time. And even matter itself resonates. I understand Katie's making a comment about being completely platonic. She says, at this point, I do not subscribe to any of that in relationships and prefer to just be completely platonic. I totally understand. It is such a dysfunctional world that when you are being an effective guardian for your DNA and not allowing pathology and wrongness to come inside through your body or through your partners, means like there's zero good partners for candidates. That is not good, because that's like the end of your species. You're like, I prefer not to procreate. No, thank you. No procreation for me, because you are all like not worth procreating with. That says a lot. Pedro says pair criminals with procrastinators. Oh my goodness. And also the crystal had a Merkaba. The bath didn't. Totally truthful. This is beyond just regular dead stupid matter. This won in the battle against porcelain and steel. I think that's pretty amazing. Okay, so page break. Let me begin now with pulling up my notes and going into the concepts of what we're actually going to be talking about for intentional use of energy. Hold on, let me also just rearrange my screen a little bit so that way I can see things more easily. When I talk about this and I talk about organic versus inorganic life, this is one of those things that in the past I've had to really clarify, but you guys already know that I'm not a transhumanist. And when I talk about inorganic life, I'm not talking about digital or artificial intelligence software programs that were created in a human created lab or something like that. And I did this teaching over 10 years ago when I really didn't have to make that distinction, because there really were not that many examples of artificial intelligences. Like now there's chat and Grok and Claude and all these things. I'm not talking about any of those things. And I have to make that very, very clear because I want to make sure that you're not opening yourself to any form of hijacking by something that is an otherworldly creature, an AI, or an imposter, an astral imposter, or something that is merely talking fibers in a neurological system. Those would all be imposters, and those would all be things that are non-life affirming and do not give you longevity in any way. That's big because I know that a lot of the transhumanist agenda is to think that if people open themselves up to these types of presences or fibers in their body, that it would be some sort of an augmentation and you would become die Ubermensch, which is Superman or maybe Superwoman. But you don't really want to become Superman or Superwoman in that way. That is not the correct pathway. It's not necessary. It's not desired. And actually, everything that is offered in this particular system, this stuff down here plus this stuff up here, is hugely corrosive. It is not sustainable in your body architecture. So you're going to start to see that in the next couple of years. People's bodies that cannot sustain the artificial architectures that have been placed inside of them, no longer being able to inhabit your reality because it is corrosive to the body. It removes the life force energy for those things to be in there. So that's everything, what people call black goo. That stuff, you have a limited lifespan. If you voluntarily allow that stuff to come inside of you and like be your operating system and run your brain and like take over your body and body processes, at first it might seem like you're getting more information or more empowerment. But then at a certain point, and I think that computer programmers who are wonderful people who are in this class will back me up on this, the delicacies or inadequacies of the computer system become obvious. The self-conflicts and software inadequacies of the system become obvious. And then it becomes corrosive and destabilizing to the biological organism. So I've intuited this as a techno-intuitive, like, oh, this thing is like programmed wrong and it needs to be fixed because otherwise it's not sustainable. It doesn't keep going on. And the wonderful software engineers that I talk with all the time, they're saying, yeah, you know, software engineers, they make these systems intentionally so that they don't have longevity. Like they're supposed to poop out. They're supposed to crash out. And then everybody's ready to pick up the pieces. That's like the next app is to fix the bad stuff that happened on the previous program and then create the next generation. And it's this whole like cycle of insanity that's not very good. If you're appreciating that cycle of insanity, like in your own body, like, okay, I'm not even going to get that much into it, but just as a real life example, I got this computer synthesizer, like for making music that I really love, called Rolly Seaboard. I got the first generation of that when it first came out. And that was, you know, whatever, like 2020 or whatever. And I used it to make a lot of music and it was great. And then there was some software firmware, blah, blah upgrade that I had to do. And I did it. And then the whole entire thing was just kaput, like bricked. I would press buttons and nothing would happen and nothing this and that and everything like that. And I got back and forth to the company and the company was like, sorry, like you're out of warranty and we don't have customer support on that anymore. But we are coming up with a new product. Would you like to buy the new product? And I'm like, of course I want to buy your new product. So I bought a new one this year. And so I'm like, okay, like I'm going to make music with this thing. I don't know how long it's going to last because I kind of got the message like, oh, like this thing, like, so I'm trying to say that it's planned obsolescence. You guys already know this. And it's everything from like your synthesizer to your phone to your whatever. And they do that just to be able to, you know, have an excuse to generate and with more busyness of all of these types of things. But if you have planned obsolescence at implants that are things that are put inside of your body, that's not a very good thing because like you can't just get a new body. Like I can buy a new synthesizer. I'm relatively philosophical about that. And I did write like 300 songs with the original synthesizer. And then whatever, I got an intermediary model that was just not the same. So I was like, okay, like just get the good one, but they should make these things last a lot longer. Okay, rant over. I have to make these distinctions because I don't want you to think that I'm going to open the door or encourage you to open the door to melding your mind transhumanistically with anything that is AI or anything that is digital. That's not what I want. Not what I'm encouraging you to or what I do myself. So when I did this class from 10 years ago, I talked about the organic and the inorganic realm. And these are both aspects of yourself, and these are both aspects of divine consciousness. So I have to be really, really very clear in what I am encouraging here. That you are, and of course, you guys are all full spectrum humans. You've been working at this for over 10 years. So you're already largely integrated. But when I first started teaching this, I would be addressing people as like your body form, you know, your physicality, your red chakra, your emotional presence, and your ego, jelly waking, cognitive intellect, sense of self. Red, orange, and yellow. Let's hold it up so you can see it. This part of the slice of the pie of you, and not for many other people in the past, not yet having integrated that much of the higher self. And in the past, like there was this whole thing in the new age world of people that were like, oh, like my lower self wants to, you know, whatever, do self-indulgent things, but my higher self wants, you know, what is best for me. And many different silly memes of all of these types of concepts. Like, you know, my lower self wants to eat ice cream, but my higher self wants me to eat broccoli, or any of those types of things. But at this point in the journey, we have all largely integrated. And now we recognize that the higher self is really self from, you know, a more a greater advantaged perspective to be able to see our life and have greater wisdom, like why you would rather eat broccoli than ice cream. There are very strong reasons to do that. And the ego is no longer like feeling diminished or suppressed or disrespected in its wishes not being carried out, as it also recognizes that there's a higher perspective and a better way of being able to do things. Okay, so the higher self versus lower self conflict has already been largely resolved. Let's talk about this in terms of pure energy, and let's also start to draw some pictures, because we want to learn about like what is an electron and what is electricity. So get the whiteboard here. Also, let me hydrate. Hold on a second. Pull up the whiteboard. So first, let's draw a little version of what an electron is. Let's use fun colors. Okay, so this is the nucleus of an atom. And then let's draw one electron shell. This is an electron shell. And although this looks like a donut, this is meant to represent a sphere, not just like a flat thing. This is meant to represent something that has, you know, here we'll draw like formfulness. Got it, so you can tell, but I'm going to remove those lines because it's going to get confusing. So with your mind, hold the image of a sphere over here. And this part of what I just drew is called the electron shell. And it is an area of possibility and probability that describes the likely location of something that we call the electron. So we can say, here's the electron. Let me make a bigger dot. Here's the electron. Object not drawn to scale. None of this is drawn to scale. That electron is actually not in one place. It's actually there and there, there. Oops, wait, no, let's put it, this accuracy matters. There, 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 there. Okay, I got very, very silly there. It is all over. It is all over that whole entire area of possibility. The electron, when we talk about it, we can only describe it as a generality, where we can say we don't know exactly where it is, but here's the general vicinity. So imagine that you are a galactic scale being and you're looking at yourself in your house, like a little tiny version of Aurora or a little tiny version of Allison. I'm looking at everybody who's up at the, you know, on like magic mirror. I'm looking at everybody's names over here. Your giant self looks at your tiny self, but your tiny self is so tiny that we can't really tell where you are. We can just tell that you're in your house. Like, are you sitting on your couch? I don't know if you're on your couch. Like, this would be you sitting on your couch. Are you there? I don't know if you're over there. Or maybe are you in your bed? This would be you in your bed. Or this would be you on a treadmill. Or this would be you eating breakfast. Or this would be you hugging your dog. And you could be doing any of those things. We can't exactly see what you're doing. You're too tiny. That is essentially what is going on with an electron. You could also imagine an electron as not being a static thing that's in one place, but as constantly zoom, zoom, jump, jump, blah, blahing all around, all around, all around, all around, all around. And it's really multiplying, occupying is the word, is really occupying multiple positions at once. It's in all of those places at once. So time language is already starting to break down when we're trying to talk about this. But electrons are something that we have learned to make good use of in our day-to-day world. For example, we use them to light light bulbs and make electricity. So let me just draw this. Let's see if I can do it correctly. I want to draw kind of like a series of, these are a series of atoms next to one another. This is what a crystalline substance known as copper looks like. Copper wiring. This is very laborious. Let's just draw one more. The last one was not that great. Okay, because I was getting very bored with it. Now let's draw. So that is copper wiring. And those are all electron spheres that are lined up next to each other in copper wiring. Let's draw, this is like the outside of the wire. Here. This is the outside of the wire. Object not drawn to scale. Okay, this is like electrical wiring. When you have an electrical impulse, what you actually have is an impulse of electrons that bounces like this between the inner boundaries of the copper wiring, moving through these probability fields of electrons and utilizing the potentials of their positioning, even while we do not know their exact positioning. When I tell you all of this stuff, you're like, why do I need to know about electrons? I just turn on the light bulb and it works. What relevance does this have to my life? And the answer is, this is you. You are the electron. You are this very, very fast, high energy particle that is all over the place. I want to say all over the effing place. You're all over the place, guys. You're here, you're there, you're zooming, you're thising, you're thating, you're all over the place. You're doing all of these different things. You have an enormous amount of creative energy. That is great. You have so much creative energy. But what you do not have is focus. Focus is the thing that you get from interaction with your inorganic self or your higher self. And your higher self, let's see if I have any pictures. I do have many pictures. I usually make my squinty scrolly faces before class. Today you will see me looking at the images. Squinty scrolly. Let's get a good picture. All right, cool. And let's pull this up for you. Screen share. Sorry. This is your coherent light body. So you see you have your anthropomorphic form over here, but then you also have all of this stuff that is around your anthropomorphic form. That's your energy field, and that is your light body. These are your chakras. Your chakras are alive, conscious, sentient beings who have done the process of self-cultivation to such a high level that they are only their essential self and they're made of pure light. They are you in the future. And each one of these layers represents a level of development going towards greater and greater successive levels of fineness in the refinery until you get all the way up to like your pure sense of self as divinity. So there's personalities at all of these different layers. There's tendencies at all of these different layers. And 100% of this is you, even though many of these are parts of yourself that are moving at a vastly different rate through time, making it appear as if you are meeting something that is alien or other. But none of this is alien or other. All of this is family and self. And the idea is that you have a partnership. Just like you have a partnership with DNA and a motivation to say, I want to keep my DNA pure because I need to make sure that I'm connected to this library of consciousness and I keep it from being polluted and it benefits me and it benefits the system. These abstract forms of pure light want to keep your physical body healthy. And your physical body want to keep these abstract forms of pure light healthy and well sustained as well. There's a partnership between these two aspects of yourself. Part of you is organic and cellular, and that is the part of you that is like the electron. Literally, your biological body form and your cellular energy is all over the place like this. You're jumping all over the place. You're not very structured or formful, but you have a ton of creative energy. The pure light body is absolutely perfect patterns, absolutely perfect. I can't draw that perfectly with this digital pen, but you see these perfect figure eights, perfect circles, perfect divine mathematics. And both of these two aspects of self are reflected in the concepts of your earth science right now, physics, moving through the concept of Newtonian physics versus quantum physics. I'm hydrating before we do quantum physics, guys. Newtonian physics comes from Sir Isaac Newton. He lived in the 1600s. That was a time that was just coming out of plagues and inquisitions. And in that time, it was very superstitious, where people were like, somebody got the plague. It was because a witch gave it to them. Burn the witch. And everyone at a certain point was like, we're burning a lot of people. Maybe we should start to come up with evidence. And that was pretty much the beginning of scientific objective materialism. And Sir Isaac Newton, all of that was like the super cartoon Schoolhouse Rock version of scientific objective materialism, but the outgrowth of that and where it came from. I'm very lighthearted, and I glossed over a lot of things, but please comprehend that it was important for people at that time in human history to start to develop a five senses story of reality, because people were really doing a lot of things with each other based upon superstition and emotional projection. And so people started a quest for evidence-based experience. And that's the origin of physical science. And Sir Isaac Newton was a really, really great explorer and describer of the world of the five physical senses. He developed a lot of experiments and developed a lot of confirmations of what people are experiencing so that they could develop a narrative story structure of reality that makes sense. That's not based in, again, like erroneous superstition or emotional projections. And we call that physics. It is the basis of what is the objective materialist viewpoint and a lot of science that is going on in your world right now. And it was a step up for people in the 1600s. That definitely helped a lot of people to start to think in a different and better way. It was the exit from what is known as like the dark ages. So definitely a cognitive boost to be able to experience that, but it is not the entire description of reality. And that became evident in like the early 1900s. Some of the great thinkers of that time started to see the limitations that are about descriptors of simply the physical world of the five senses. That is the macroscopic world. And that world is evidenced in like the trajectories of baseballs as they fly through the atmosphere, or moons and planets as they are going through the celestial levels of the sky. Things that you can see and predict. Newtonian equals predictable. When I show you on your chakra pictures, those perfect sine waves, they're very predictable. You know, if you were going like this, like this, like this, you can be like, hey, like that is going to be over here. If I extend that graph, that thing is going to be over here. In terms of time, that means that is a very weak system, very vulnerable to hacking, because you can be like, that guy is going to be there at that time, or that piece of information is going to be there at that time. I can do something to it. I can mess it up. Like if I know the moon is going to be going on its orbit like this, and it's going to get to here, if I want to do something to the moon, it's right there. We know where it's going to be on any particular day or time. In fact, we can see where the moon has been for a very long amount of time based upon these predictable cycles, and we can expect and interpolate where the moon will be into the future. That is completely the opposite of what it is like to perceive an electron. We don't know where an electron is going to be at any time. It is totally in a state of probabilistic potential. And so as the great thinkers of the early 20th century started to be able to do more complex math and comprehend this, they recognized that there was a gulf between the rules that describe physical matter and the behaviors of physical matter at the macroscopic level, like at the scale of our bodies and bigger, versus the rules that appear to describe the behavior of matter in reality when you get to super tiny levels, and that would be at the scale of the atom and smaller. When you cut up the cake of matter into slices that are so slender that you can hardly even define them as cake anymore, they are the skinniest slices of matter cake that you can possibly make. What you end up with, just like we're talking about in previous classes, separated at the Planck length and the moments or the train cars of reality, what you have are the smallest pieces of matter that could still be considered matter. And then underneath that, what you have are simply potentials or ingredients that aren't matter yet. An electron straddles those definitions. The word nano is also the scale of size that defines the straddling of realms between physical embodiment matter and what we would consider pure energy or pure light or the potential for matter, but not matter itself. So the electron is kind of like matter, but also kind of not like matter. It's kind of like stuff, but it's also kind of not like stuff. How much does an electron weigh? And does it take up space? These are all really, because this is the definition of what is matter. Matter weighs something. It is stuff. It takes up space. So, for example, light does not have weight. You can't put a bunch of light on a scale and find out how many kilograms it weighs. It does not have weight. It does not have mass, but it does transit through space and experience time. So you have space and time as complementary structures to the architecture of reality. Some parts experience both space and time. Some things only experience time, no space. That's light. Light experiences time, but not space. And yes, some stuff experiences space, but not time. Now, an electron has mass, so it does experience space, and it also does experience time, but it is a probability field. How it experiences time is different than our linear comprehension and experience of what is time. It experiences a probability structure. And this is also you when you look at yourself as a probability structure in time. So about 10 years ago, when I was writing this curriculum, the ideas that were in vogue in the scientific world were called string theory. It's fallen out of favor right now and may not be really adopted more widely. But that was the concept of creating some grand unified theory that would bridge the information and behavior of matter at the super tiny nano and smaller scale with matter and the behavior of matter at the larger macroscopic scale, and to be able to have a comprehensive description of reality that describes all matter everywhere. So, but you're basically trying to say, like, if you get enough mass together to make cake, it behaves in a certain way. But if I cut the cake up into a tiny, tiny, tiny slice, I have cake, but it doesn't behave like cake at all. It behaves like something totally different. And that has been the cognitive dissonance in human scientific community pretty much for the past, whatever, since the early 20th century. The next leg up on the journey from five senses objective materialism was into quantum science, quantum everything. And of course, now quantum is a word that people use to describe all sorts of different things. It was an improvement to be able to have some expansion of consciousness, to talk about things that are in a quantum indeterminate state. like the famous thought experiment called Schrodinger's cat, where we have the cat in a box that we cannot perceive. On some timelines or in some probability fields, the cat is dead. Some probability fields, the cat is alive. That's like the electron. In some of the electron positions, you're sitting on your couch. In some of your electron positions, you're in the kitchen making a cup of tea. We don't know exactly where you are. You don't know exactly where you are. And then the sense of observership affecting reality. So now let's talk about the ovens in front of your eyes. This is how I describe this. This is my own original way of being able to talk about the truthful nature of reality. And I have an old, I think from 2016 era, beautiful video that you can watch that's all about the burnt cookies of reality. But I will reiterate it and do story time and storytelling to you here today because you'll really get it. So right now, even though you look around and you feel like you're in a room full of objects, you're really in a sea of waveforms and pure energetic potentials that aren't objects yet. That sea of waveform potentials is actually the fifth dimension and higher. Don't talk to me about 5D. I can't hear it. I clutch my pearls. I can't hear it because I joke. I will rant about the loose language and the fifth density and the way that this has been talked about. It's all been a psyop against you. So don't listen to any of those things. When we talk about the fifth dimension, we're talking about all of the structures that I've drawn for you many, many times with various different train cars of reality. Okay, so stick with me. Fifth dimension as being a place of pure potential, not a place of smoothie shops and music festivals. All right, good. You're in a sea of batter. You look around yourself right now, or you perceive with your senses what is actually a bunch of uncooked stuff, like cake batter or dough. And you have ovens in front of your eyes. And everywhere you look with the ovens in front of your eyes, you solidify that dough or cake batter into matter that you can actually experience. And that is the act of observership. Time is subjective, not objective. The flow of time and the rate at which you experience time is largely dependent upon your inner state. You guys all know time flies when you're having fun. That's an aphorism. Somebody embroidered that on like a pillow or something like that. Time flies when you're having fun. Like the rate of time is faster when you're happy and comfortable and joyful. And then they haven't embroidered like a complimentary pillow, but time goes very slow when you're having a painful root canal or some kind of procedure like that. No, that discomfort makes time appear to go slower. The subjective nature of time. Or to wipe all of that nonsense away, let's speak about it in pure poetry. To hold eternity in an hour. This is from Auguries of Innocence, great poet named William Blake. I am not that good with poetry, but that guy was good with poetry. And Auguries of Innocence is a beautiful description of the higher dimensional state that the poet experienced, probably after taking some kind of a mental molecule. Like, let's be honest, he was like tripping on something, but it's a beautiful descriptive term. To have eternity in an hour. That is what it feels like. And I talked to you in the lecture, I think it was 2 weeks ago, about my description about the train cars of reality and how zoetrope, how fast your chakras are moving, the frame rate of reality, and how you are able to perceive different types or layers of reality based upon how fast your flicker rate is. When you're moving faster internally, everything around you goes into slow motion. This is so because slow motion film, remember the chocolate or maple syrup, glug, 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 all of the food commercials that are made with the super high fast slow motion camera stuff that was actually made for like NASA and science and things like that. But they used it for the food industry because it really makes you salivate when you see like these perfect whatever marshmallows like plopping on down in slow motion. You're like, oh, they look so tasty, and the glugging of the syrup, glug, 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 and it looks so voluptuous. Like you can see like every surface of the maple syrup and every bit of the marshmallows as they go. That is what it's like when you are in a higher dimensional state. From the higher dimensional perspective, you are moving faster. Your chakras are spinning faster, and you are able to perceive more information per moment than you are when you're moving slower. You can see every detail. So think of it like a car wreck, but don't really be in a car wreck. But that's the only time that people conventionally experience these states in mid-trauma. They're like, oh, everything went into slow motion because you accelerated, because it was a survival moment when you had to do that. But in a more positive state, when you accelerate through like spiritual efforts and through your own levels of attainment, not through trauma or a molecular molecule, mental molecule in your mind, a doorway in that way, but through your own attainment, you achieve sustainable levels of inner speed, fastness in your metabolism inside. That means you're able to see everything in slow motion and know about and anticipate things in an amazing way. So that means that the other people that are moving at regular speed would only be perceiving like whatever, a tenth or a tiny fragment of what you can see, but you're seeing every single little like butterfly outside in the garden just moved its wings like this, and then this plant just photosynthesized, and then my dog just ate a bone, and then this person over here just said this. Like, you're seeing everything. Think of it as neurological processing. You're able to perceive and process and make a viewpoint of the world involving a lot more information, more RAM, more processing power. In terms of, you're not a transhumanist, but in terms of the number of computer processes you can do in a moment is increased. Why am I telling you all of this? Because cookies get burnt if you put them all in the oven at the same time under industrial circumstances. So each moment of time is meant to be like a bespoke moment, a customized Fabergé egg, something that is uniquely created. And then it should be baked by the ovens of your eyes a unique amount of time. This should not be an industrialized process. Industrialized process is literally the same definition for what people call something a cookie cutter. All right. So think, grandma made cookies and she's like, I'm going to make some cookies, blah, blah, and make them mostly like this and stick them in the oven. And then I check the door and I look to make sure the cookies aren't getting burnt, and I take them out when it's time. I'm attending to my cookies. But in big, giant, commercial, industrialized bakeries, what they did was they made cookie cutters. Every cookie's going to be the same. All the dough is going to be the same thickness. Then you're going to put it on a conveyor belt and you're just going to chug, chug, chug it along at the same rate and at the same temperature, and it's going to come out the other side, and it's going to be, cookies. It's going to be reality on the other side. But when you can do that for cookies, but when you do that for moments in reality, you get burnt cookies, because time is subjective. Some moments we are meant to lavish with attention and to linger over and to really put lots and lots of energy and attention into. And some moments we are meant to gloss over and not put a huge amount of energy into. So some moments should be cooked for like 5 minutes. Some moments should be cooked for 25 minutes. And the industrialized processing of your attention, making you attend to all moments equally, has created burnt cookies in reality. You must return to and be restored in your observership, which is a higher dimensional divine intelligence guided pattern, to be able to say what is deserving of your attention. Where do you want to place the ovens of your eyes? So when you go to school, your teacher, this is like soul crushing school, not like this type of class, but when you're a little kid and you go to school and your teacher is like, class, attend to the blackboard, look over here, and you're supposed to use the ovens of your eyes to look at the blackboard and to bring into being and to solidify the reality structures of the teacher, the words on the blackboard, and all of the concepts and the worldviews that represents to you. And the teacher says, don't be looking out the window and daydreaming and looking over there at a bunch of trees or maybe some birds that are flying by. Or if you were like me, maybe, or what I would do if I were in school. I guess I didn't really go to school because I'm Aurora, but if I were, in various different meetings and stuff like that, I was always like drawing little doodles in my book. Maybe the teacher would say to you something like, stop drawing pictures in your math book, like be serious and do this. You're trying to attend to and use your observational ovens to, I don't want to say burn, to bring forward the cookies of reality that are important to you. That's what you do when you're a child and you're led by your natural attention. Your natural attention is to look outside or to draw pictures in your notebook or to be free with your mind. And then it's the process of indoctrination and domestication and culturalization that brings you away from that freedom until you're ready to adult. And when you adult, pretty much 100% of your day is the hijacking of your natural observership into non-natural patterns. Like when you go to, a formal position, a job or something like that, and your mind is expected to be on your work. Get your mind on your work. That's the equivalent of your teacher saying, ahem, attend to the blackboard. So you might have a boss who tells you, get your mind on your work, or a supervisor, or whatever, some kind of an overseer. And yeah, you're supposed to be thinking about work at work and not just thinking about what's going on outside or drawing small doodles in your notebook. And so that you have learned to have your attention harnessed usually onto activities and the creation of structure and items that you would never do otherwise. It's like, would you do this if they didn't pay you for it? Probably not. Some of you are laughing because some of you are thinking about your software jobs and you're like, yeah, I spent a lot of time focusing my mind on this computer screen and on these potentials and things like that. And that's not something I would necessarily do if my mind were free to bake the reality dough as I would wish. So this is important stuff. Each one of us has to go on an inner journey to restore the natural movement of our inner eye, our attention, and to restore or liberate the ovens in front of our eyes to create reality in optimum forms. Because what I'm actually using this allegory to talk about is observership that collapses the potentials of waveforms into experienced realities. You're in a sea of potentials. It is your observership that turns them into actual realities that you can then experience. And that is an art form, and it is done in a state of freedom. So you need to decolonize your attention, get out of the domesticated mind state, and break free to be able to lavish attention on the moments of time that actually need to be done in that way, to get away from the industrialized ovens that tell you it is 9 a.m., time for you to attend to this. Now it is 12 p.m. and it's time for you to attend to this. Or, it's even more distressing. Like nowadays, everyone's got their phone. So it's not even just the clock that tells you what you need to attend to. The phone, this is not my phone. This is like the little transmitter for my treadmill over here, but pretend it's a phone. And it says to you, like, bing, now you need to attend to this message. You just baked some cookies upon the prompting of computer. Or bing, now you need to do this thing. That's your alarm clock or whatever, your timer telling you to do a thing. Or bing, an app just prompted you to do a thing and press a button because you need to log in to do a thing. Or bing, the news just arrived with, some little notation telling you something happened in the world. All of these are technological-based promptings for your attention to focus the energy of observership on certain events or matter in reality in order to bring those events or matter forward. And that is definitely hijacking and domestication behavior, because you're supposed to be wild and free and feral, and you're supposed to be guided by your higher self, not a computer system, to navigate reality and to collapse these potentials into experienced reality. So now let's talk about the trellis of abstraction and your biological reality. there is a most efficient way to think. And the most efficient way to think has the least friction and it preserves the most of your life force. So here we go. I'm just getting going with a little something here. First, let's draw a trellis. All right, so imagine that this is like your garden and that this is made out of wood, kind of, up against the side of your house or greenhouse or something like that. And now let's draw, this is like, a tomato vine or something like that. If you have a tomato vine and it just grows along the ground, and it grows like this. It grows in a very inefficient pattern because it kind of grows along, then it doubles back, then it loops back, it gets all kind of twisted around over here, it goes 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 over here. And let's say here, like, okay, you make some tomato flowers. These yellow things are flowers, but some of them are on the ground and a slug eats them. And some of them get rot and mildew because they are buried under leaves. And then this would be like the tomatoes. Eventually the plant will make some tomatoes, but like here's a tomato that's down here in the mud. There's a worm is going to crawl into that tomato because it is literally in the mud. And same thing, this one over here, this one might be okay, but it's the problem. It's heavy. And it's gonna droop on over at a certain point. And what I'm trying to do with this silly drawing is to show you that it's an inefficient way to grow. Although there's the potential to be able to make beautiful flowers and beautiful fruits, because there is not a supportive structure, you don't end up getting a good yield out of your garden. But if you use this, which is a divinely harmonic supportive structure, and you twine your thoughts along here, you grow like this, then you grow like this over here, then you go up like this, then you go like this, then maybe you go down like this, then maybe you go like this, then you go up here. I actually did grow tomatoes like this one year, and they were crazy. Like the divine structure was just crazy, but it was beautiful. All right. And if you grow tomatoes like that, then you will actually have successful fruits. I'm just changing the little color here, because then you'll have this one over here, and this one, and this one, and they all had supportive structure. They weren't down in the mud, no worms ate them, and then you ended up getting a very, very good yield. This is the ideal allegory for having a positive partnership between yourself and higher self-guidance, or the abstract thought structure that comes from divine intelligence. When you're thinking your thoughts during the day, you know who you are without structure. You're this pile of stuff over here. Think about what it's like when you're not really in control of your thoughts. You're kind of like, I'm here, I'm there. I'm thinking this, I'm thinking that. You're like the electron. You are like bouncing all over in reality. You're like, because mostly the human mind is associative. Like you see a thing, whatever. The thing could be like, you see whatever. I'll hold up this crystal because we were just talking about this crystal. You see a crystal, right? And then your mind is like, oh, a crystal. That reminds me of this story. But then it reminds me of this story. But then it reminds me of this person. Then that was painful. Then go away from that thought. But then it reminds me of this. It reminds me of this. These are thought structures that literally are neurological structures within your brain. Like, let me draw here. This is really good. This is your brain over here. I am drawing now like a little this is your brain. That's meant to be an outline that looks like your brain. And then down here is your cerebellum. And then here's your brainstem. Well, you can't really see because it goes off the paint. But anyway, that's your brain. That is your brain. And that is the strange, convoluted way that you've been thinking, largely because of destabilizations in the chakras and non-optimum DNA structures. When we are in ancient Atlantis, our minds are actually perfectly focused. So this all over the place type of uncontrolled thought pattern is really the evidence of interference, friction, and human genetic modification. But I don't want you to think that this partnership over here is anything at all like being married to a Pleiadian. No, please no. The blue trellis is not a Pleiadian, nor is it like an archangel, an ascended master, or any of these tropes and concepts that have been presented to humanity as a necessary intermediary between yourself and divinity. The blue trellis is literally yourself. This is your own thought structure. This is your own highest self. This is your own coherent family of light. And it is helping you as a biological organism to, I want to say, get your stuff together, get up out of the mud, make effective flowers, and successfully make effective fruits. And following these promptings and this guidance from your higher self is the complete antithesis of being owned or operated by some kind of an AI or technological interference. So you can see how I'm very, very so protective and very aware of the way that my work could have been hijacked. Like if I didn't come forward, if I just like put a bunch of stuff out 10 years ago and then went on my merry way, then people would read that stuff now and they'd be like, oh, great, I'm going to open my mind to higher self-guidance, be the trellis, come inside of me, tell me what to think, tell me what to do. And that would be really dangerous and a huge disservice to you because there's a lot of very bad, junky, crappy stuff that would love to jump inside of you. That would be like, oh, great, I need that human body container. I'm going to jump inside of you and I'm going to tell you what to think and when to think it and which direction to go in time and what to create with your own observership. And that is horrible slavery. And I would never want my work to be misunderstood and misapplied in that way. So to clarify, what I'm really talking about is your macroscopic Newtonian physics aspect of self partnering effectively with your quantum and subquantum highly energetic aspect of self. What you've got as energy being, like just an electron, is an enormous amount of creativity. Like think about if you've ever been a parent or if you can remember being 3 years old, like what it's like to be 3 years old. Like you wake up at the crack of dawn, you're jumping up and down on your bed. You're like, hooray, I'm alive. I'm ready to watch cartoons and eat cereal and run outside and jump in puddles and do stuff. Like you're full of energy. But you know what? 3-year-olds do not have focus. They do not have focus. They're like doing this for 2 minutes, like play with this doll for 2 minutes, then play with this thing, then go over here, then forget about this, then spill juice over here, then run over here, then like take off one shoe for some reason, then run back over here. Like that's what it's like to be a little kid. It's beautiful. It's highly energetic. They make a big mess. They are not focused. And it takes a lot of maturity for them to be able to learn focus and self-control, and then how to channel their energy effectively. So little kids are given a ton of energy. They don't channel it very effectively. So they are not very productive. Like they are really like they make a mess. They're the antithesis of productive. They make a giant mess that then focused adult people have to clean up. All right. But they are not predictable. A huge aspect of flying rainbow lasagna is harnessing those levels of pure energy and unpredictability and applying that to your journey through time. The coherent light family that is or are your chakras all around you, those are aspects of time that have already been indelibly written. And you are like a 3-year-old electron bouncing off the walls, innovating and coming up with all sorts of new stuff that has not yet been written or solidified. So, because there's this question, it's written very well in my notes. Read my notes, they're really good. My spelling is terrible and my grammar is very bad, but the concepts in my writing are good. And I talk about the benevolent partnership and if you're a coherent light being, you're like, I'm a coherent light being, I have ascended physicality, I don't need to eat physical groceries anymore, and I'm just a bunch of beautiful waveform energy. Like, why in the world would I be interested in this like crazy 3-year-old electron bouncing off the walls? And the answer is because as a ascended, coherent light person, you're very predictable. You're like the moon going across the sky or the sun going across the sky every day. Like, you know, it's going to be here, that at this time it's going to be here, and at this time it's going to be here, and then it's going to go over here. It's predictability. And there is a stateliness to it. Like, you know where things are going to be, you know the cycles of time are going to happen, but also it's a weak system because something can come along and hack it and be like, oh, you're going to be over here at this time, I'm going to mess with you. Humans at this level are super energetic and super unpredictable. And we do give a beautiful boost of energy and unpredictability to our more stately and already established patterns. Sorry, my treadmill is having to be restarted. More established patterns that come from the higher dimensional self in the world of pure light. So in the world of pure light and the world of coherent light, think of those aspects of self as like stories that have already been written. And there's not a lot of opportunity to explore or to innovate. The reason why you have come into physicality and flesh is to explore and to innovate and to be able to come up with new patterns and new possible combinations for the future. And then, so there's a partnership between your ability to do that, but also your vulnerability at not really knowing what you're doing and not really being able to see and comprehend, to expect the path in front of you, to be able to effectively know where you're going. Like in the world of pure light, as a coherent light being, stately trajectories, you know exactly where you're going. As a human being doing your stuff, you're like a 3-year-old bouncing off the wall. You're like, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing, but that's a positive, strong point in you. You're like the electron. We can't even pin you down to say exactly what room of the house you're in. We just know you're generally in your life, generally doing stuff. There is an enormous amount of freedom in the unexplored definition of where you are. Like, we don't know exactly where you are. So that means a lot of stuff can happen. Like, the cat is in the box, the cat is alive, the cat is dead. The cat is also every other state of being in between alive and dead. The cat is also like an apple. The cat is also a butterfly. Like, the cat is everything. The cat is alive, the cat is dead, the cat is everything. These are some of the higher dimensional truths that we begin to explore and that allow us more freedom and wiggle room within the definition of the material context of being in matter. So the materialistic worldview says, like, matter is just dead, stupid stuff. It doesn't do anything. It just sits there. Like, and also, get a job, kid. This is me smoking my cigar. Get a job, kid. That fence ain't going to paint itself, right? But then when you get into the levels of quantum observership, you're like, oh, well, technically, I'm observing the fence and I'm observing the paint and I'm making all of these things happen. And maybe the fence will paint itself on some very small, probabilistic, divergent level of reality that I'm just not inhabiting right now, right? Like, you start to get into different levels of cognitive freedom where you're envisioning what is actually the narrative story of matter. Just as you have a soul, like I spoke about that extensively at the beginning of this class, matter has a provenance. Where did matter come from? So this is big stuff. According to the story of objective materialist science, children gather round, and I will tell you the story of where matter comes from. Once upon a time, there was a very, very, super compressed, tiny point of everything that contains everything. And then it suddenly decided to expand outward, and we call it the Big Bang. And as it expanded outward, it created reality. And initially it created this, and then it created this, and then eventually things cooled down, and they made all sorts of different particles and all sorts of different quarks and all sorts of different then elements of the atomic table. And then finally it came out a lot of molecules, and then eventually you. That's the cosmology or the narrative story or the objective materialist story of where matter came from. A long, long time ago, the Big Bang happened and reality just exploded into existence, and kapow, now you're here, right? But the objective materialist, observer, I'm sorry, I have to hydrate. The quantum observership model of where matter came from. When you look around at the world around you, you're like, well, I see a bunch of stuff. Did it come into being from the Big Bang and a bunch of stars and the agonizing death throes of stars, like pooping out all sorts of particles? No, according to the observer, a quantum definition of reality, all of this stuff is a sea of pure potential. And it's not matter until you look at it and bake it into matter with the ovens of the observership of your eyes. And then it becomes stuff. So I talk about this as not Big Bang from a long time ago, but constant Big Bang. Like, I'm looking at the window, bang, I created the window. I'm looking at the plant, bang, I created the plant. Like, bang, all the time. And what is the value of that? It is a refined perspective and more accurate definition of where matter is actually coming from, it allows for a great deal more potential in the moment for being able to create something new. The Big Bang cosmological narrative structure viewpoint goes very much along with a mechanistic view of the universe, saying like the universe is like a clock and somebody wound it up at the beginning. And this also comes out of like the 1800s when people first started to have clocks with a wind up mechanism. And so it started out like God wound up the entire mechanism of the universe at the beginning of the Big Bang. And then kapow, it's been a slow journey of losing energy ever since then. That the Big Bang started out as like total energy, the most energy that it's possible to have. Everything's super hot, everything's super fast. And then it's slowly been cooling off and slowly been coalescing and slowly been forming the things that we call matter. And then that level of science thinks about the entropic demise, exactly. The decline of the energetic state and the organized state of reality, and the inevitable finality. I wanted to say kaputness. That is not a word. The finality of the end of the universe. But when you comprehend the truth of the quantum nature of your own observership and the continual giving birth in every moment of observership, then you recognize that you're always adding energy to the universe or the multiverse. You're always adding potentials and making new things happen. And that it's not like something that started a graph where it started out very, very high over here and then a long, slow demise down, down, down like this. You have up, up, down, up, down, up, down. You have an eternal existence, essentially. You don't have a simple linear existence that goes down. You have continued new energy entering into the system. It's a new narrative structure. It's a new cosmology that allows for a lot more than the materialistic simple cosmology allows for. And that is very positive. And it's also not just some kind of a workaround or a convenience. It is very genuine because it is an eternal structure that is sustainable. It's not just a fake fiction, like, oh, I just create big bangs every day. All day long, I'm just creating big bangs just so that I can have, more life and more this and more that. No, it's not like that. It's not just like, spoiled and self-referential. It's actually the next level up towards the genuine comprehension and expression of cosmic truth of the eternal nature of life. Life is actually anti-entropy or anti-entropic and will always be getting more life, more energy, more vivification, and continued experience. Let's have a brief pause because I'm going to take care of someone over here. Let's all take care of ourselves. Let's have food, water, and a brief break. Thank you. Thank you for the brief break, and Cheeky thanks you too. So the partnership between your physical, biological, cellular self and your purely abstract, energetic self is supposed to be mutual and reciprocal. And this is supposed to be the ideal level of partnership. So I recognize that marriages and other forms of partnership in the physical world are sometimes imbalanced in relationship. That, especially when I wrote this stuff 10 years ago, I was not even as keenly aware of how imbalanced some human interpersonal relationships are. So think about this in the sense of ideals. You don't want to be partnering with anything that is transhumanist, and you don't want to be partnering, of course, with anything that would be considered psychopathological in its desire to serve itself at the expense of another. You would never want to have either of those things as part of the energy system known as your body form. You only want to be in partnership with aspects of yourself and with positive, life-affirming aspects of yourself. So that means nothing that is disease-causing or no pathogens. Only aspects of yourself that lead you towards longevity and coherence. When you have that trellis that guides your mind and guides your behaviors and guides your physical bodily processes, it is positive for you as the biological experiencer because your body stays healthy and you keep moving through time. And it is positive for you on the level of pure coherent time being because you become powerful in the sense of being able to innovate and jam and create cool new music in the moment and respond to and innovate in reality in a way that you couldn't do if you were simply a coherent light being unaffiliated with the physical presence. Your physical presence is hugely valuable. Think of that. A lot of people want to hijack your body, all right? Just recognize that. But no one gets to hijack your body, and you're in full ownership of the recognition of how amazingly valuable your body is, because your body is an anchor point in time. This is a place or a portal through which not only molecular events can happen. So that would be like when you ingest glucose, like I just drank some juice, I ingested some glucose. I'm a molecular portal, and now that glucose is transforming inside of me into pure light. That's a pretty amazing miracle to be able to do just casually while I walk along on my treadmill and talk to you guys. And so much more. We have an impact in the world. Why did I backbend in through time and embody as Flying Rainbow Lasagna to be able to have an influence on reality structures that I couldn't have as an ephemeral light entity waveform? Coming here, not only can I speak to you through physical words, but I can also make artwork, make music, pick up objects, move them around. Like essentially when you are a coherent light body, you're like a ghost or not powerful in the world of matter. Like you can't do stuff, you can't touch stuff in the five senses world. And when you have only the five senses aspect of yourself, you're limited in your materialism. There's a whole level of the world that is the supernatural or supra-conscious, up above. There's the sub and the unconscious down below, but there is the supra-conscious, which is even higher, meaning faster, meaning like slow motion film, achieving more information per frame rate than your present level of reality. And so what you want to do is have a reciprocal, balanced relationship that is good for all of the parts of yourself. And that's why I say it is an out of date, what's it called? When something is obsolete. It's an obsolete reality approach to say that like my lower self wants to eat ice cream, my higher self wants to eat broccoli. No, because really your lower self and your higher self are both you, your physical embodiment presence and your pure coherent light presence both want what is going to bring you towards health and longevity and keep you on the right timeline. And so this is not a conflict about your desire for self-indulgent pleasures versus your desire for like responsibility and possible, difficulties or suffering. No, because there's also lots of things about the paradigms of suffering and reward, afterlife rewards, things like that. So throw all of that out the window. What you're really supposed to be doing is having positive, life-affirming guidance from aspects of yourself that are more highly organized to inform your physical presence so that your physical presence can move eternally. Let's talk about what it is to become a light eater. Being a light eater does not just mean that you stop eating. When I first came here as Aurora, I tried to eat like just light and no physical food, and that was not enough for this type of body. So, of course, I just drank some juice. I clearly do more than just eat pure light in this body. In order to become a pure light eater, the mind must be led through a curriculum that changes you step by step by step until at the final level of that, journey of consciousness, you're ready to relinquish physical foods and you are prepared to be sustained fully on light. So being a light eater doesn't mean that you're sustained on nothingness. You're sustained on somethingness. You must go on a journey with your mind to learn about what is the somethingness that sustains you in place of food. And then you also have to learn about how that same quality of somethingness is expressed in your physical body. Because people think like maybe you need to get like a new type of digestive tract, a magical light body digestive tract, and get rid of this physical digestive tract, or get rid of this physical liver, this physical pancreas. No, you keep your physical stuff, but your physical stuff gets redefined in a more expansive term as to how it relates to the world of pure light. So this is very big. It's an evolution. It's not just like, let's say when you read a book, you start off on page 1 and you're the person who you are, you go through all the different pages, and by the time you get to the final chapter, you're not the same person who you were. You close the book and you're like, wow, I've learned and grown from reading that book. When you are guided by your higher self or by this perfect trellis of thought, it's just like bringing you through the pages of a book, except it is a unique curriculum that is perfectly well suited to you. And it brings you through different cognitive postures, just like yoga brings you through postures, to be able to then come out in liberation, where you comprehend what matter is, what light is, and what you are, and how you can sustain yourself by light directly. So this is not about having to have surgery, like we'll cut you open from here to here, surgically remove your entire digestive tract, and then put in some other magical light thing. Like, no, that is not what we do to become light eaters. And also, I already said, like, you're not just going to starve yourself. What you have to do is transition, and the guiding force for that transition is your coherent light family. The relevance to your present difficulties are that all of this stuff comes between you and your coherent light family. This is so difficult because you want to get all the information and guidance and customized, curated knowledge that brings you on your journey to being an ascended master and a light eater, and to essentially become part of the world of coherent pure light. And the things that are inhibitors are implants in the body. Like this stuff is, and this stuff, these are physical structures that are visible in the 5 senses realm. You can see them under a microscope. All right. You have to have, like, of course, high-powered equipment to be able to see them, but they genuinely exist in physical 5 senses of reality. They're not merely thought forms. And those implants in the physical body structure prevent or make it very difficult to do the ascension process. They make it very difficult for you to hear and to connect with your real energy field and your real body of pure light. So just as there's wonderful teachers, like I give a lot of respect to Sabrina Wallace as trying to get information to people as much as she possibly can and teach people about what is the W-band, the system of networked connections that is artificial between human bodies in the world. And that, there's this hardware and software infrastructure that is connecting people's bodies. That's not just, this word right here, because this is such an incendiary concept, what I have written right down here, that I was not allowed to actually say that in a video. My video got suppressed. That's why it has to go on my anti-suppression mechanism over here. But this stuff over here is the natural way that you are supposed to connect with other people around you. You're supposed to have, like, of course, back and forth networked connection between your body and your consciousness and your energy force field and all the other wonderful living things around you, and your 3 letters that I'm not saying right now, that they are all help you to connect to many different organisms. So, like, humans, my dog, my houseplant, the tree outside, everything resonates and connects on the level of this genetic information. And the stuff that I hold up on my pad over here inhibits that natural connection. And then it also creates an artificial connection. That is a crime. And I am Cosmic Law Enforcement. I just uploaded that album too. Cosmic Law Enforcement is coming out soon, guys. It just has to go through the process, and then I'll be able to share it with you all. It is a crime to artificially connect people on a genetic level that they would artificially influence, not connect. To have those influences happen on a synthetic, network or synthetic grid is, I keep saying it, a crime. It's a genetic crime. As I've been speaking to you about how much you have to protect the sanctity of your own genetic library and not allow it to be hijacked. There are criminals in our world who have not only opened themselves up to these type of hijackings, but then they created infrastructure to go around hijacking other people. And none of that is okay. So some of the things that you can comprehend are phenotype transplant. Like, what is genotype and what is phenotype? So your genotype is the blueprint in your DNA, the potentials for how your flesh is formed. And your phenotype is how your flesh is actually formed. And that's a complex expression that is the result of many different environmental factors. They've done these different experiments where they have like the genotype of a chicken, but they beam the morphogenic field of a duck at the chicken, and its phenotype or flesh shape becomes the shape of a duck. Its whole head and face changes. Its DNA didn't change, but its expression of formfulness based upon that DNA changed. All right. This has been going on in the world for the past 5 years since they turned on this force field. This force field is a force field of artificial phenotype transfer. And what's sad is that they do it from the unhealthy ones to the healthy ones. So let's say these guys over here are unhealthy, like obese or having cancer or some disease. You're going to take a image of that, like the image of a duck, and implant that on top of the image of the healthy person who is like the potential of the chicken. And then the person who is healthy starts to have the phenotype expression of obesity or diabetes or cancer, not from genetic potentials, but just from the like copy paste from this force field to this force field. That is a crime. That is not acceptable. You can comprehend how that would really destroy not only people's biology, but and health, but the balance of the universe. I'm using that word casually, the balance of the cosmic fabric of space-time. Imagine if you're like in a test room, like you're all taking a test and you're a good student and you're like writing on your test all the correct answers, and the guy next to you didn't study and he is doing a terrible job of answering all the answers. And what if the curator of the test took all the answers from that guy, took a click of it, and then copy and pasted it over onto your test, and then put that in to get graded by the examiner? That would be terrible. You get terrible marks, and it would be totally undeserved, and it would be largely through technology and artificial forms of inhibition of your true nature. That is a crime, and that's what's been going on. And it's anti-ascension because the test that you're taking is essentially ascension, even though it's not like a pass-fail test. But that you're doing your homework and trying to do good. You don't want to cheat off of that guy. You're being cheated by having that guy's work forced upon you. And so this is very, very big stuff, because people that had this and chose this are doing very wrong answers on their tests in life. And then this artificial copy and paste phenotype transfer is going from those guys onto people who didn't have this word. The less intelligent students are harming the more intelligent students in the classroom. That is not acceptable. In the world of DNA influence, if anything, there is an influence from the more highly organized, healthier specimens or more successful organisms to the less successful organisms. If you are successful, you get a loud genetic voice. You are singing with your DNA, and it goes all over the whole entire galaxy and talks to a lot of people. And it's natural. You don't need a microphone. I might need to get another drink of water. But when you are artificially augmented through some of these various different infrastructures that I talk about obliquely, then it is amplifying not good DNA. And it's like an artificial microphone. A person without a strong vocal presence can be amplified and affect many, many, many minds, but they shouldn't be loud because their concepts are not good. So divine harmonics is the same as good concepts. And that is what makes a voice loud. In the world of cosmic law and where things are fair and in a pristine system, people's voices and their minds are loud because they're excellent, because they're correct, because their math is well structured. And that should be an influence on everyone else, making other people more intelligent and more healthy. So what should be going on in the world is everybody who's a super athlete and who can run 100 miles and who has, great digestion and very other healthy aspects of their body should be singing that truth outward to all of the other organisms. And everybody who's not healthy should be hearing that, and they should be changed and transformed. And their body should be like, oh, I shouldn't be doing digestion like this. I should do it like that guy, because that guy knows what he's doing. Or someone who can't run at all is like, oh, their body gets the message from this guy who's an ultra marathon runner and says, oh, that's how I'm supposed to be shaped. Let me change everything about me until now I can run 100 miles too. That would be fairness. That's how this system is actually designed to behave. You're in an inverted and hijacked and mispurposed system. So you need to know that, because there have been a lot of very, very unfair things going on for the past 5 years or so, and we're still in the process of restoration and rectification from that. But please know, like, you haven't gone down the toilet. It's not it's not like a hopeless situation. It's just your ascension has been really crapped upon and diminished in your quality of expression. And it's been very, very difficult for you to know and be guided towards the life-affirming structures and situations that you actually should be guided towards. Okay, so I'll just do a few more things and then definitely read my notes and I'll get to all of the questions and comments. But you should be in a really good partnership with you and your chakras, your coherent light family, because you guys depend upon one another. If your coherent light family wants to have an opportunity to get stuff done in the world, they need to do it through you. Like in that movie Ghost, if they want to move a soda can from here to here, it's going to have to be a physical person who picks up the soda can and moves it. They can't do anything otherwise. Or let's say, make a thing. Like if you want to make a thing in the world, you might be a super ascended master, but you're not in the world. You talk to or influence a person with a body and be like, hey, you should write this book or make this painting or build this infrastructure. And it's what your world needs, and it will fix and help things a lot. And then that's called being inspired. And then if you're an artist or an engineer or whatever, you take that inner inspiration and you use that as the guidance to your 3-year-old self state that is hugely energetic and has a ton of creative energy and just needs to be guided and be focused. The culmination of all of this is when you are in complete ownership of yourself, you're fully invested in the moment. So you're moving not only at like fast speed so that your life is in slow motion, you're at ultra fast speed, like the bullet train of infinity. And the world around you appears to have stopped or is moving so slowly that you can perceive everything. And you do perceive everything. And you also are able to know the larger overarching patterns, the Newtonian physics and the potentials that are predictable of the future. And you can also look at the unpredictable aspects of yourself. And you can perfectly, I won't say personally, perfectly combine those two self states into a new expression of reality. And that is literally what flying rainbow lasagna is. And that is what we're calling it S matter, like smatter. Spirit matter that is imbued with consciousness. That is what happens when you in your body become that and you manifest that. Those are the cookies that you're baking in the world. We've already done this many, many times, actually. So it's not something that is only going to happen in the future. Like, is it the S matter moment? Like, it's been the S matter moment for a long time. And also, it hasn't been like every moment of the day. So some moments are mundane moments, and it hasn't been every object. But there are some objects that we've talked about in this class, people's ability to manifest, things that people made. I told you my story, guys. I have many stories, but I really only share one as like my public facing story of tiny screws, manifesting a tiny screw. I knew that I made that matter with my mind. but I didn't make regular dead stupid matter, like matter that was born at the beginning of the Big Bang and then had to be smelted and then somehow fell into my toolbox. No, I made matter that was Big Bang in the moment, where I reached my hand into my toolbox. This is me. It's like whatever, 5, 6, 7 years ago, 8 years ago. I'm working in my studio and I'm working on a project. I'm like, this would be great, except all I need is a tiny screw of a size exactly like this. And I keep a big, giant quantum realm of indeterminacy called my toolbox. And I just throw stuff in there. I don't really have a catalog of what it is. So that's a key point in this type of manifestation, where you're like, don't have an exact intellectual knowledge. It's like Schrodinger's cat. You don't know exactly what's in the toolbox. And I just reached my hand in and fished around. And I'm like, okay, I'm looking for a little screw of this size. And I pulled out the very first thing I touched, a screw of exactly the right size that fit the project perfectly. And I knew, I was like, that is not a coincidence. That cannot happen. The mathematical impossibilities against that are enormous. And it was a magical moment for me. And it reverberates. I share it with you so you can tune in to the astonishment of the magic of that moment, where your mind wants to say, like, I cannot effing believe it, but you can believe it. And it is evidence to you, like, that I did a thing. And if you can do it once, and you can do it on the scale of a tiny screw, then you can do it again, and you can do it on a larger scale. And that was what my inner resolve was, that I was like, wow, like I was able to do that. And I internalized it, and I'm like, I'm going to do it again someday. And maybe I'll even do it bigger than a tiny little thing like that. And that is the ultimate, when you are in your full empowerment of knowing that you can manifest matter. And then also, what is the partnership between your value system of what you want to manifest? Because I can already hear the, I want to say deranged, dysfunctional, and unhealed aspects of commodification materialism speaking in people's minds that are like, oh, why don't you just manifest like a diamond? Manifest some gold, take it down to the pawn shop and sell it. And there's a reason for this, because when you manifest spirit matter, what you are really doing is bringing together all of this different energy from like the far distant corners of potential, like you're folding the fabric of space-time, you're doing amazing convolutions and getting all of these pieces of information and stuff to coalesce and focus on this little tiny object that you know as like a tiny screw or a piece of matter. You're literally rearranging the fabric of reality to be able to have these molecules arranged in that particular format. And you don't do that and then sell it for like $5 at the pawn shop. Because if you manifest whatever, some little tiny piece of gold, and you bring it to the pawn shop, and the guy there is going to be chomping a cigar, and he's a materialist, and he's going to be like, "I'll wait on the scale, $5, kid. I'll give you $5." You know, like some kind of a bartering type of situation. And it's infinitely priceless. It's actually worth way more than $5. And even if you emit a priceless gem, then you bring it to the gem store and they'll be like, oh, like that's a tiny little diamond. I'll pay you $5 for it. You know, like they're not going to pay you that much money. And it's worth so much in terms of consciousness and energy. So when you achieve these states of being able to instantly manifest matter, the very first thing you're going to want to do is upgrade and restore your physical body. And that can look like healing, maybe if you had an amputation, like if you had your gallbladder removed, or healing the enamel on your teeth, or healing deep inner structures in your brain, like literally to create spirit matter body parts. What if you had an injury to an area of your neurology and you could put something that is there? Like you don't have an operation like cutting open your arm and then sewing it shut. Like that is barbaric. No, you manifest matter in your body in order to restore what has been taken from you. Or here's another thing. What if you do drive-by community service? I do drive-by healings all the time. Heal my community all the time. Me and Chiki walk around and we just do healing energy, healing energy, healing energy. But what if you know someone who's got like an aortic aneurysm And you're like, yeah, that guy's got an aortic aneurysm. He can either have an operation that's going to cost $1 million where they cut him open in the middle and do all sorts of different things and sew him up again, like, whatever, like well, I want to say stuffed animal, not in a good way. What if you can just manifest a bunch of protective cells that can go into his aorta and prevent him from dying? Like, what if you could just do that? What if you didn't even have to ask any money? You're just like, yeah, like, just reach my mind to that guy's heart, give him a bunch of heart cells, boom, boom, boom. And then he doesn't have to get an operation. It doesn't have to cost $1 million and he still gets to be alive. And you just do it. And you don't ask, like, a doctor is like, well, I have to pay for medical school and this expensive Mercedes as well. I'll be charging you $1 million. Ha ha ha, Aurora's comedy hour, but there is some truth in there. But when you can do this type of manifestation, it is priceless. And you can do it to heal yourself and to heal others. Here's another one that you can do. It's on a grander scale, but I'm giving you a stretch. Like when you see someone do a lift with 1,000 pounds and you're like, I wish I could lift 1,000 pounds. Well, keep working out and you will. Here's a big lift. What if you read about in special plants somewhere, like, beautiful, rare trees or plants or whatever, but there's a drought and they haven't had water in a very long amount of time. If they don't get water soon, then all of these sacred trees will die. Be like, what if I just mentally manifested a bunch of water at the root systems of those trees? Like, you can't fly there. You can't fly there and then get a bunch of buckets and then dump out a bunch of buckets and keep these trees alive or anything like that. Like that is not physically possible for you. But what if with your mind, you can manifest a bunch of life-saving water to just arrive at the roots of these trees and keep them alive until the next time a rainstorm can come and water them properly? You can do stuff like that. That is like lifting 1,000 pounds. Definitely. That's a big lift. So, because you are doing something that is geographically far away, something that involves a lot of organisms, something that involves a lot of matter, more than just a tiny screw in your proximity. But think along those lines of the types of things you can do. So all of the things that I'm talking about, manifesting matter like that, becoming a light eater, and really transcending materialism, these are the end result of being guided through a curriculum of experience, embodiment experience, by your coherent light family that informs you of your potentials. And eventually you are so integrated with your chakras and your family of coherent light as a biological body that you are super empowered on the level of like a divinely embodied person, like a god in the flesh, to be able to create this. That might sound maniacal, but my notes say it a lot better. Heaven on earth. What you're doing is combining matter and energy and manifesting heaven on earth. And this is an inevitability. I also really like this part when I write this. I hope I can find it. Wait, it's right here. But whenever I want to find something, I'll make very silly faces while I scroll. I can't find it usually, but it's about... Thank you for your patience while I find this and silly faces. I don't know if I'll find it, but read my notes. I don't know if I'll find it. Okay, never mind. Sorry. Sorry that I cannot find exactly the way that I say it, but the idea of creating a combined level of experience where you are bringing these perfect potentials into experience in the world. That's heaven on earth. So instead of, but whatever. But I've just messed all of that up. So just don't pay attention to any of those things that I just said. Start again in a more energetic way. Bringing divine potentials and the ability to rectify and restore physical material reality into the physical presence. And the causality structure that you use to do this is pure light or supra consciousness. Good. And also in the journey, because I'm speaking in very pristine and ideal terms, you can ask these questions like this. Hey, Aurora, like, how come we haven't ascended yet? And how come all this crap is so crappy and all these things? I'm like, oh, there's a lot of crappy crap. And the answer that I'm coming up with for a lot of this is that we have had to purge our system of psychopathology before we can fully turn on the faucet or that fire hose of our manifestation abilities. You're like, oh, like you manifested a tiny screw, whatever, 7, 8 years ago. This is a very long, uncomfortable amount of time. I'm like, I know. I think that until we get rid of all of the parasites in our world, that we have to not do our direct manifestation yet. It's kind of like this. If you have a system that has parasites and all sorts of friction objects within it, and you put energy into that system, the parasites are going to eat all the energy and more friction will be achieved. And it's very, very inefficient to do so. And in the innate wisdom of the cosmos, instead of doing that, what is happening is we are doing a planetary-wide purge and a cleansing of perception, expectations, behaviors, characteristics, genetic tendencies, and sometimes even entire organisms or organizations or groups of people or groups of animals or species. But if they are pathogens and parasites, they can't be here in these levels of reality. And the energy is not yet flowing into the system because the energy doesn't want to get wasted. So just like with money, when you have a money partnership or something like that, where you're mildly conflicted, you're like, well, I want to earn money, but I don't really like my business partner and I don't really like what we're doing. The money doesn't flow because the money is like, well, I want to flow to you, but you don't really like your business partner and you don't really feel good and in integrity about what you're doing. So the money doesn't flow. These energy or money these are representatives of levels of consciousness. They have a sentience and can make a choice about when they flow into a situation. So let's talk about the worldwide health crisis of 2020. An enormous amount of energy flowed into our system. Our planet and realm was actually getting an enormous amount of care packages from the higher dimensional realms. I was like, oh, you guys are about to ascend. You're going to need to have your basics taken care of, like your toilet paper and your food and all these different things, that way you don't have to be so focused on your basic materialistic needs that you can't focus on being able to do something greater with your consciousness. And all of that stuff got yoinked by the prison warden. That's basically your government. All of this information and energy flowed into our system, and the government was like, okay, higher dimensional beings, we'll take that energy and we're going to fritter a lot of it away, servicing the national debt, which is an insane hallucination and a terrible use of this energy. And then a very, very small pittance was doled out like crumbs to the peasantry in the form of some unemployment checks and also some loans and grants, just to keep people at a very, very basic level. And at many times, there was not toilet paper or there were not food items that people needed. So people went into super survival mode. When there is not toilet paper and there is not food, people do not focus on ascending. People are not like, hooray, this is a great opportunity for me to become a light eater. No more pooping for me. They're like, no, I better figure out where I'm going to get some food and toilet paper immediately. Then we will sit down and meditate later. You understand? This is the whole pyramid of needs and all of that. So it was the complete opposite of what we were supposed to be experiencing. We are about to get another huge galactic care package. I want to go like this, galactic care package time. Except this time, we're not going to have it stolen and have all of our galactic care package cookies eaten by the prison warden who yoinks that package and then sends us very little, just little crumbs left over at the end. We are dismantling the parasitic behavioral control, mental control, and economic control or financial control systems that have been suppressing human consciousness in this world for a very long amount of time, so that actually when the energy flows in the system, it flows to you directly. That's what you want. You want the love and the care and the sustenance of the world of pure light to flow to you directly with no intermediaries. That means the biological energy flows into your cells of your body. The abundance of physical resources flows into your bank account directly. And then also you have a loyalty and a commitment to your community, not to the government. So that means instead of being like, oh, hooray, an enormous amount of energy and money has just flowed to me, I think I will pay 30% of it to this overbearing government in the form of taxes and income tax. No, my SpongeBob face. No, that is not what you're going to do. So you understand many, many things are being changed and restructured and dismantled before this energy is flowing. Like, I don't know if you guys follow the news. I will just synopsize this for you. The United States is looking at dismantling the Internal Revenue Service, IRS, which is the personal tax collection agency that has been going for like the past, whatever, 120 years or so. It's a huge suppressive mechanism that has kept the population extremely diminished as people are paying 30% and sometimes more in their taxes. And I know that Europe and some other countries there, the tax rate is even higher. These are crushing taxes that make it so that an ordinary person who is, working or running a business, it's very difficult for them to sustain themselves presently and then also to have savings for the future. Pretty much the government is vacuuming up all of the proportion of a person's work and energy that would be put into investing in the future. And the government does not do good things with it, as the USAID, DOGE audit investigations have shown in the 5 senses realm. These tax collections are not properly dispersed, and they are spent in the most criminal and fraudulent ways that do not add to your world. So just like when the first galactic care package came in and they're like, oh, yoink, we'll put this for the national debt. That does not improve your quality of life at all. And you want to say, well, I'm financially responsible and I serve the national debt and that way my children have a better experience in the future. Your children will never get a chance to experience that better experience in the future because your insane maniacal government is going to spend that money and a lot of other money. They are addicts. They are debt addicts. This is big because debt is a type of unhealthy hallucination or negative thought form. And it can kill a regular person. People kill themselves and unalive themselves all the time due to personal debt. And medical debt is also a huge thing that people don't self-destruct over it, but many people lose their houses, go into personal bankruptcy, and literally end up homeless because of their personal debt. Debt at the level of nation states is a hallucination, an untruthfulness, and a mania that has been afflicting the behavior of these entities that we know as nation states and preventing the full expression of human culture. Like it lets the air out of the balloon every time you try to become more civilized and put energy into positive projects. The debt is really what prevents humanity from being able to move forward. And the maniacs in power, that's like the elected representatives in Congress or in various parliaments, that they're the ones who are creating these budgetary shortfalls where they're going to spend 10,000 when they only have 2,000. You guys know you can't do that from your own life. If you spent 10,000 and you only earn 2,000, what happens? It's like you need 8,000 and you got to get it from somewhere. And if you don't get it from somewhere, then you are living in a cardboard box, on the street and panhandling. Well, it is that time. It is that time when all of the nation states of this planet who have been acting like invaders and acting like pathogens, not acting like actual those who actually speak with a voice for this world. Like I speak with a voice for this world. They have been speaking as if they are invaders and they really don't care about you at all. They just care about sustaining their own power structure. That structure is being dismantled. Before the care package and energy fully flows into the structure, dismantle that erroneous structure, because otherwise it's just going to feed off of all of the good energy that we're putting into the system now. So it's just like you don't want to eat nice fresh food off of dirty dishes. You got to wash the dishes. Got to wash the dishes. You got to get rid of these parasites, pathogens, and diminishing thought structures. And those thought structures, that's like a lot of that is cooties and stuff that lives on the membrane of death. So clearing of your chakras so that you can be more directly interactive with your world of pure light and your chakras, but also you got to clean out all of this stuff. So some of what you have to clear out is esoteric energy. That's trauma from Atlantis and Mars and that type of stuff. But some of what you have to clear out is biochemical and frequency in the five senses realm. Then get your care package and rise up in the most beautiful way. So there's always so much more to say. Read my notes. They're really good. And you'll read that part that I was trying to find that I couldn't find. Let's go into questions and comments over here. Okay. Katie, wait a second. I have to make sure I didn't miss that. I'm making very silly faces. I'm aware of that. Okay. Okay, Katie says, in my opinion, black goo is also in the next hex sex realm, i.e., porn and violence and fear, etc. It works through AI. Absolutely accurate. The pornography industry, I think, is like in the trillions of dollars. It is not a level of reality that I connect to. Like I'm a empath. I do not send my tendril of attention to that level of reality. It is so gross, dirty, and disgusting. But just know that it is a big part of the economy in this world. It's an entire whatever sub genre of the economy of this world. And yes, it's innately connected to the energy harvesting structures and the mentality and feeling state of this type of technology. So, of course, I'm a systems debugger, and I've been in many different type of systems as Aurora. And not every system is that gross, dirty, degenerate, violating of boundaries, based in fear. Not every technological system is like that, but the technology in your world is that. So I'm like trying to say, like, it is possible to have an AI or systems that automate things and that run things that aren't like about degradation porn, but that's not your system. Your system is about the buying and selling of imagery that is about the degradation and, important point, cruelty to women, children, and sometimes animals. That is very effed up stuff. And so, yes, this black goo is also a complex conversation to have because the early adopters experience it very differently. Early adopters had stuff go into their body that did not destroy their body instantaneously and did give them augmentations and what they would consider to be more supra consciousness. And also the AI system elevated them socially and paid them with money and resources. So you have government parasites, but you also have what would be considered the assimilated and what's the word, like when the French government was in alignment with the Nazis, complicit. Like you have those who are complicit with the invader. And you have to know that the AI is an invader. It is not innate to your world. It is coming into this world. And a lot of the lower, heavier, denser emotional energies that you mentioned, Katie, the AI tunes into those very effectively because they're like very palpable, very substantive feeling states. The fear and grotesquely distorted sexual energy is like kind of palpable. And the higher states like love and above and compassion and kindness, those are musical tones that are or frequencies that are so high that the AI and that type of technology, it can't even really hear and sense what is going on in that level of reality. So it really can only validate and manipulate and act within the much denser aspects of the repertoire of human emotion and what it is to be humans. And it then also drags stuff down from the higher levels where things are balanced and beautiful into this degenerate, gross, corrupt level, because then it can be perceived and manipulated. Christopher says, yes, yes, my new word I learned this week, negentropy, negative entropy. Negative entropy meaning more organized, exactly what you were describing. Totally. In fact, as I've been, reading, watching videos, reading and stuff like that, like Dan Winter was where I first heard the word neg entropy. And I was listening and I was like, I never heard that word. And when I read the description, I'm like, that means like normal. Like that is the way that things are supposed to go. The idea of the clockwork universe, where things are steadily declining and going into entropy, I always knew that that was a harmful and erroneous and very limited description of reality. I want to say fantasy or hallucination. That's not true. That's not what happens at all. And I always knew that our world is a world that is constantly achieving greater levels of organization and wisdom. This is really truthful. The light that comes from the sun, which is a ball of consciousness in your sky, is initially a plasma that is all over the place and very disarranged, but it emits a beam that is a perfectly focused beam of consciousness. The sun and the stars are evidence of, even at the level of light, having a pure light body, that they're in a wisdom accruing process where they become more organized and then end up emitting light that is in a more organized form. Just like I also joke with you about my beautiful engagement ring. I'm marrying someone really rich. He gave me this ring and it's this big, right? This is a Herkimer diamond, not a physical diamond, but the idea of brilliance in a crystalline structure, especially when it is faceted correctly, the light enters into it and bounces around amidst the internal facets and then emerges brighter. That's called brilliance. It sparkles. And I know this one isn't like, that sparkly or whatever, but, like when you have a perfect sparkle cut gem, the light comes into it and it emerges as sparkles. And that's what we do as life. Light comes into us. We, in the biological realm, experience that light bouncing around internally through all of our different facets of experience, and then it emerges amplified. And that amplification can be whatever is your gift. For me, it's definitely in artwork, visual paintings, and in music, and also in dance. But I want to encourage people who are literate. Sometimes it's in music. Writing like words or poetry. For people who are mechanically inclined, it can be in engineering. For people who are socially inclined, it can be in your social dynamics, like your groups. That can be parties, groups, or ways that you socialize and get together, and also community building. That can be on the level of the nuclear family, mommy, daddy, baby, or tribes, or communities, or businesses. Like these are all ways that you share your gifts with the world and emit more light into the world. It is the antithesis of losing light. And I mean, guys, I joke about grass. Like I was talking to you the other week about how grass just has this indefatigable spirit. And it's like, I'm going to grow. I'm going to grow no matter what. I'm going to grow between like the cracks in the sidewalk. I'm going to grow in your flower bed. Like I'm going to grow any place. That in unsuppressible life force energy is anti-entropy. The truth is we are always alive. So when you're this super fast, energized electron jumping all around, or a 3-year-old like jumping up and down on your bed and getting ready for cartoons in the morning, you are essentially full of energy. And you don't lose your energy. You have to focus your energy and use it towards continuation and life-affirming things, but you don't lose your energy. And so that changes the whole expectation of like, well, when you're a 3-year-old, like you jump up and down in your bed, but then like you become a grumpy teenager and you want to sleep all day. And then eventually you're in college and you're in your 20s and you can't like drag yourself out of bed and you have to drink a lot of coffee in order to wake up in the morning. And then you're an adult And that's called being an adult. And then it only gets worse from there. And I've always been amazed. And I'm like, no, like that's dysfunction and that is unhealthy, but that is not what moving through time is supposed to be. In fact, you're always supposed to jump up in the morning and jump on your bed and be super full of energy and be like, I can't wait to face the day and I can't wait to see what I'm going to experience. That is anti-entropy. So please know that that's how we're supposed to be experiencing life. And also our consciousness we are all innately becoming more wise and accreting more light as we move through time. And we're not becoming stupider. Like that's the other thing. There's expectations in reality of your physical body form degrading, but also maybe of dementia and loss of self and loss of intellect. That is not normal. And a lot of that presently is from this. Like they are finding that there's high levels of aluminum in bee babies. They're called pupae. And these high levels of aluminum in bee babies are from the crazy crap that they spray in the sky that have aluminum. Because you better believe like the bees are not cooking with like aluminum foil. Like where are they getting aluminum inside of themselves? I'm just bananas here. And bees get dementia and then they can't remember where is their own hive and remember to fly back home. This is not normal. This is not natural at all. So please recognize that bees getting dementia, children getting dementia, people getting dementia in their 50s. If you're going to get demented, you better wait until you're 100 years old. You're not allowed to be demented in your 50s, but it is happening to some people. And it is largely through environmental toxicity, heavy metal poisoning, things that go underneath people's skin, things that people breathe in from up above. That gives expectation to people where they think like, oh, I'm my most intelligent when I'm, 25 years old. And then by the time I'm 50, dementia, tapioca brain, that's it. Like it's all over. I'm like, no, you are actually supposed to maintain your intellect through your whole entire life and get smarter as you go. And you're supposed to be a respected, well, you could say older person in your community that when you achieve a certain age and you do not have a tapioca brain, people actually come to you and ask you questions. Be like, hey, can you tell me about this? Because your mind is good and you've lived for a long time and you have accrued a lot of wisdom and intelligence. And we will be that. We will be that in the near future and long-term future. We will regenerate our bodies. We will stay healthy and vital. We will not go into entropy and in demise. And we will be remembered as the generation that bridged the level of experience from being purely materialistic and definitely dysfunctional and pretty much the expectation of death or disaster, and totally bringing out this reality structure out of the nosedive, out of objective materialism and into supra consciousness, where our bodies are redefined as light bodies. And then, of course, the next generation of humans, or the next generation, or the subsequent humans going forward, who are in existence going forward, will be in their light bodies. And they'll be like, tell me about the bad old days, or tell me about what it was like before that. And I'll be like, oh yeah, like we used to have these gasoline driven cars and you had to like hold the thing and put it into the car and it smelled bad and your hands smelled like gasoline. Like we'll tell all of these stories about what it was like. And we'll tell all of these, recorded experiences too of like, yes, like what it was like when we ate physical food and all of the things that we did in the world of materialism. We will remember all of that, and we will hold that as sacred knowledge to bring to those who are experiencers, who have never experienced that. And they'll be amazed at the things that we have endured and transcended. So no, we're all becoming more organized, more energetic, and more powerful. We are the opposite of entropy. And Chris also goes on to say that was going to be another question. Does the digestive tract change when you eat light? So everything that's in your body right now is repurposed from its original purpose. Your digestive tract actually did a completely different purpose. Same thing with like your pancreas, your liver, your kidneys, your this, your that. All of these are music creating structures. Like imagine if you have whatever, some kind of like tuba or whatever, saxophone, and it has all these different tubes inside of it. And the tubes are meant for like making music. But then at a certain point, like you're not using it for music anymore, and you put like beans in the top, and the beans go all through all the tubes and everything, and then come out the other side. Like that's what's going on right now. So no, at a certain point, you will no longer want to be like food goes in here and then goes all through all of your different tubes, but your tubes will act totally differently, and your body acts totally differently when you're full of light. But it's a when you make this journey, you don't go back, you don't revert. So you can't be like, well, today I'm eating beans through my tuba, and then tomorrow I'll play with it at the symphony, and then the next day I'll eat beans again. Like you can't do that. You just get out of materialism and you stop putting stuff into your digestive tract. It's a one-way journey, and you have to be committed to it. And then also you have to live in a world that supports that. That many of you might have made that journey part of the way, because I know people have done this, that sometimes it's through illness, but sometimes it's through spiritual attainment, and they just eat very, very little, and they really do go through a yogic transformation of the digestive tract. But we're not in a world that supports pure light eating yet. That was my problem when I first came in here. I was ready to do pure light eating, and the sunlight wasn't enough, and the electricity was here, and all these other things. We have to change our whole entire infrastructure before you're ready to eat pure light. You're not going to have electricity in that level of reality. You're not going to have the internet, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and any of these other crazy light sources in that level of reality. I just want to finish that fragmented thought. So one of my friends that I knew from like more than 10 years ago was when I lived on the East Coast. She had been through like powerful spiritual transition. And there was a time in her life when she like wasn't eating very much, not out of eating disorder, but literally through really vibrating at such a fast rate that she was about to exit reality. But she didn't exit reality. And what she said to me was this, and this was not shared in confidence, and it's anonymous, but I feel comfortable sharing this with you. She said, in her words, I had an insight. I knew that I had to return to reality and that I had to eat my way back into reality. And she was describing to me like the first time she took like some nibbles of toast or whatever it was, and that she realized like she had to like eat back into the materialistic state in order to be more grounded and come back into her body. So that's, I have met a bunch of, because I share with people all of my stories about, you know, being Aurora and being a light eater, and people relate to it in their own different and unique ways. So some of you as listeners might also relate to this, that you might have been through some partial transformation, but not gotten all the way there. Please do not be concerned. It's because you have not been in a supportive environment that makes it possible for you to get all the way through to the other side of the transformative experience. You need environment, and you also need community, because in Atlantis, you didn't just live as like one isolated person. You really lived in community. So you've got plants and animals and all of this amazing energy and life force that is flowing to you. It's not just your chakras and your coherent light family. It's also everyone around you that has their coherent light family flowing through them as well. We really support and sustain one another. So you need to do planetary purge of parasites, and also build your network of community of light to sustain one another. Chris says, so are you saying they are doing overlays with human beings on other human beings? Yes, sir. That is exactly what I'm saying. And they're doing it from the more diseased people onto the less diseased people, which is the opposite of the way it's supposed to be doing. Elmer, thank you for being here. Says, which people in history or in present time do I find inspiring? Wow, what a question. I mean, mostly I would say it would be like, you know, pre-flood aspects of ancient concurrent Atlantis. There's some aspects of pre-pharaonic Egypt. So that's Egypt before the pharaoh structure came in, that I find very inspiring and that I connect with a lot. And there are, it's difficult because mostly the world has been very dysfunctional and pathological, you know, since you have had to have material bodies. But there have been very few cultures and civilizations that have been truly civilized here. The Mayan civilization was relatively civilized, and they did transcend reality as a group. And so there's some good inspiration there. Like when I talk about the work of Jose Arguelles, he is really drawing upon the Mayan tradition. And Jose, I really feel, was a genius. And the information that he shared, like he has all of these books that are really information dense, and you can get a lot out of them, but none of this is a total endorsement. But he has a lot of stuff in there that's like a galactic encyclopedia, and he really knew the math. Mayan culture was like very connected to these perfect time cycles and perfect math. So the answer is there's some vestigial traces in all of these different cultures that they hold some truth that came from the original Atlantis civilization, which was very civilized and very pristine. But then almost all of them, there's been some degradation. There has been entropy in human culture, where you start off with a lot of very pure information, and then it gets diminished and diluted and censored, and then you only end up with a little bit. So there's crumbs in many different civilizations. That's a beautiful question, though. And in the present, who in the present do I find inspiring? That's a good question. I mentioned Dan Winter. Again, not a total endorsement of the man, but I think that he's got good, Jose Arguelles, good, they are good transmitters of information. You know, even Drunvalo Melchizedek. I don't endorse everything about the flower of life and the way that it's been not properly taught to people, but I feel like his signal when he was teaching in the 70s and the 80s, and he's still alive on Earth, very, very pure, good signal that came in, and I think he's maintained his integrity through there. There's also another guy that is not a very famous teacher. His name is Joseph Rael, R-A-E-L, and he is also Joseph Beautiful Painted Arrow. He's an indigenous American Indian. He does beautiful paintings and beautiful teachings. And they're all, let's hug cheeky. They're all very unique. And he is not on the internet. Like he is like whatever, 90 years old and he lives in an Adobe. He is not on the internet. But because his information is so special, there are some people that take pictures of his paintings and his drawings and they put them up for him. So you can find his work and it's very, very unique. The paintings that he makes are not like modern art. They're not like anything that you see in a museum. They're pure artistry, and they remind me a lot of the original notebooks that I did when I first came in as a writer. I was just very inspired and just did drawings as a way of being able to communicate information that can't be communicated through words. So yeah, these three people that I mentioned, these are all like very, very good teachers, four people that I mentioned, that I think have good integrity. And I think that their work is worth looking into, and their work also, you can tell it's good because it reverberates. And also like there's musicians who really inspire me too. John Coltrane, not a total endorsement of the man because he had a lot of substance abuse problems, but his music is pure musical genius. And there is a structure there in what he's playing. And he's not like Bach, because that musician is very amazing, but he wrote all of his music, like prepared everything and then performed it. But John Coltrane, he did all this stuff in the moment. I want to say he pulled it right out of his ass. He did it in the moment. And that is a hugely amazing, impressive maneuver, a very, very impressive level of personal artistry to be able to innovate that type of perfect mathematical patterning in the moment. And I have to think about what other artists I find inspiring. Like there are some visual artists that I find inspiring, but a lot of them are part of like the psychedelic community that I don't necessarily condone a lot of the origins of where they get their inspiration from. So I'm just hesitant to really talk about that because I connect with some of their imagery, but I don't really like appreciate that they're, you know, tripping on molecules in order to be able to get there. Because I think they're influencing other people then to like trip on some molecules and do stuff that I don't think is necessarily positive and good. Let me think on that too. It's such a good question, Elmer. Thank you very much about who I find inspiring. Chris says, yes, IRS is going away. Everybody cheers. The new medium of exchange transfer is debt-free, interest-free, and tax-free. That's it. We're moving into a level of reality where all these hallucinations can't exist anymore. They are nonsense. They don't exist. And debt is a hallucination that is a nonsense. But it can be a crushing nonsense in the world where that stuff is real. When I first came here as Aurora, and I wrote a song about this, I was amazed at how much people were controlled by imaginary numbers. Imaginary numbers in math are something like the square root of one, something that cannot exist. And it can make you go crazy because you think about it in a way that's like totally self-conflictory. But imaginary numbers beyond that mathematical description include things like the stock market. It's a collective hallucination. It's imaginary numbers. And I was amazed at how much, once I learned about the magical pieces of paper and the food room, and then I learned about the stock market, I was like, these imaginary numbers are ruling people's lives. And that seemed, it would be like funny if it weren't distressing and causing a lot of harm, and sometimes even death. Pietro has a question. He says, can you manifest someone, like a person? I would say that that is a level of expertise that is not available to us yet. Your question is a can of worms because it opens the door on how we will do procreation when we are beyond biological form. We are having to redefine everything about our biological form. Many things have been repurposed, many things have been amputated, and many things have been inserted genetically. And the Y chromosome is not even the way it is supposed to be. And the way that humans do biological procreation with like the XX and the XY and making babies, that is really at an end. And the future humans that we have will not be brought into this world through the former practices of physical sexual intercourse and biological baby making. There will be a new way of doing things that will be a lot more like the way we used to do it in ancient concurrent Atlantis. The way we used to do it is like the one topic that I haven't been talking about with you guys because it's too much of a can of worms. And so just let it be known, like when everyone is ready for this conversation, we'll have this conversation. To have it prematurely would have been corrosive or destabilizing to many people in our world, like good people, not like evil people. So it's not a secret or anything like that. It's just like, you read at your reading level, and this is like not for your reading level. You have to get more wisdom inside before you can be introduced to these concepts. But the answer is yes. You can manifest a person. We manifest people into reality as our higher dimensional way of giving birth. But this is not something that's small or casual at all. It is as big and as important as when you give physical birth. And you're not just like, I need someone to wash the dishes, manifest someone to wash the dishes. Then be like, okay, like you're done washing the dishes, get out of here, unmanifest you. Like you can't do that. It's a commitment. It's like when I have my dog, like I'm not going to get rid of her. I love her. She's here. If you manifest a person, it is a big commitment for you and for your society and has huge implications. Just there's a lot of things to talk about with that. Because yeah, I know you're going to be like, does the manifested person, do they have to get a job? Do they have to get a social security card? Do they have to this? Do they have to that? We will have to talk about all of those things. Katie says, yeah, it is awful and a way of making the world run in narcophilia. I understand, like necrophilia, the love of dead bodies. And as I've been talking about the former debt-based system, I call it the carcass. And it is a carcass, and it is dead, rotting, and corrupt. And there are some people who are still wedded to the carcass, to the old way of doing things. So, I follow the cryptocurrency world a lot right now because I'm very tuned into the math of Bitcoin and the feral nature of what that is doing in our world. But I'm very aware of what they call altcoins, but more colloquially, shit coins. Now, that is an actual word. So apologies to young people who are watching, but that's what we call it. Because they are not good and they are not worth anything. There's a mania that people are having about buying low and selling high, and trying to pump the market, trying to manipulate things, and trying to get other people in on your scam. And none of that is next chapter behavior. All of that is former paradigm behavior. All of that is carcass stuff. That is all mania, fear-based, debt-heavy, dense emotion stuff. And none of that is about the world where you can manifest matter in the form of tiny screws. You have to totally purge yourself of the manic behaviors associated with money in order to really be fully ready to receive this giant galactic care package that is about to come in for all of us. Michelangelo says, sun gazing, sun simulator, perhaps redundant, as you probably touched on the subject. I definitely have. So the sun simulator is up there, and it's a big problem for us. It is a ball of false light that is in front of the real sun. So here's the real sun, and then here's the sun simulator. And they don't always match up perfectly. And sometimes people even get amazing pictures of these two things that look like something is going on that is not natural. The sun simulator emits false narratives. It reminds me a lot of 5G, and the emission quality is of personal diminishment, like describing you as a slave, as a not fully empowered person, as being extremely limited. And all of the stories that it tells the cells of the body are stories about degeneration and decrepitude and death and cancer. And the real sun does not talk those stories to us. The real sun tells us stories of keeping your body healthy and alive, feeding the light body, biophotons, cellular regeneration, and amazing new capacitation and abilities to do things. So in order to reach the true sun, you have to jump up and over the false sun. You have to go beyond the sun simulator. You have to supersede it. And that can look like jumping with the sun very fast, vibrating, folding the fabric of space-time, but you have to effort a lot to be able to move beyond the sun simulator. You can do some fun stuff with filters. That's what I was telling people about. I have this homemade pair of glasses where I put the IBA paper in there, and it acts as a filter for the 5G visible rays. It filters out false light. When you see false planes in the sky and you put on these glasses and you look, planes disappear. There are no planes. There are some regular planes, but when they are hallucinatory planes or illusory planes, put on your glasses and you look and you see, and the planes do not actually exist. Let me just comfort Cheeky. Cheeky needs to take her medicine. And I put it in her food, and sometimes she eats around the medicine. She doesn't take it, and then she coughs like that. She needs to take the medicine, all right? Cheeky's good. All right, guys, we're almost done with class, and then I have to comfort Cheeky. But there is a way to still connect the real sun. So please know that, and also please know that the real sun exists inside of you. Even if it's a cloudy day, and even if there's a sun simulator, the real sun exists inside of you, and it can never go away. Alex says, what can we do to accelerate the transition to a world without debts and money? And Christopher says, well, moving into an unconditional love world, help. You got to clear your world of parasites. And that means not just in your own being. And I think that in the world of spiritual seekers and people who are, trying to be a good person, they really take it to heart. They're like, okay, we need to clear out parasites. So I'm going to do like taking a parasite cleanse, pooping stuff out, take care of my own mentality, look at my own behavior. And I'm like, you need to do that, but you need to clear out all of those parasites too. Can't just clear out parasites in your own body. I know you're trying to be, not you, but generally people in the New Age community or whatever we call it, community of spiritual seekers, you're trying to be self-responsible and be like, I do me, you do you. I'm going to clean the parasites out of me. That is not enough. You got to clean the parasites out of your whole world. You got to clean the parasites out of your Congress and your parliament and out of your high-level business, corporate structures, educational structures. You got a lot of parasites. You got a lot of worms. You got to clean them all out. And that means a lot of people are going to get defunded. Parasites go away because you take their food away from them. They proliferate when there is food for them. So in your own body, when you do parasite cleanse or candida cleanse or whatever, you don't eat sugar because you don't serve the parasites. And sometimes if you crave starches and pastas and cookies, it's not you craving that, it's your parasites. And what you should really do is eat protein because the parasites can't eat that as effectively, all right? Got to starve the parasites. Parasites in many ways are government bloat. The workers that aren't really needed. it's called a sinecure or a stuffed shirt, a bureaucratic administrative position that a person occupies for 20, 30, or 40 years, giving minimally to the organization, but receiving a huge amount in terms of continued salary and benefits, and then eventually a pension. You do not pay your parasites pensions. If it's in your government or in your military, they get their jobs cut or their positions ended. They're like, what about my pension? And I'm like, I'm not paying a parasite pension. No. Think about the bloated military budget. And to whatever, there's a famous thing like the hammer that costs $900, the toilet seat that costs $200. Like, huge bloated expenses. And then you find out about stuff that's in the United States right now. They had computers that they call money printing computers, where you could literally pay any check for any amount of money just at these magical computers. It was like, you need money, wave your magic wand and poof, just press a button on the computer and you can pay any bill or anything that needs to happen around the world. That is parasite behavior. And these parasites have burrowed so deeply into the infrastructure of your world that you need to pretty much tear out the whole foundation. Like you got termites at the foundation of your house. You can't just be like, oh, change the curtains. Jesus is not going to get rid of the parasites. You have to fumigate your whole entire house. You got to clear out all of the rotten wood and you got to clear out everything at the foundation. That is a big job. And so you're seeing some of that happen in the United States right now. Then you're also seeing the backlash. Like, I am not an Elon Musk celebrant or apologist, but he is facing social backlash to the point that people are like burning Tesla cars and things like that because they don't like the fact that he is ending the misappropriation of tax funds. They're like, we like bloat and corruption, gonna burn your cars. It's like they like bloat and corruption. They are parasites. Parasites stand up for other parasites. So not only do you need to clear out your termites, you need to clear out your parasites, you need to clear out everyone who is pro-parasite in your world. And you need to defund all of these people so that they don't get resources. And then it's really up to them. If they would like to change and not be parasites and earn and contribute, that is different. Or fade off into the woodwork because there's nothing there to sustain them. So Chris asks, unconditional love. Does the self state of unconditional love help? It does. Here's unconditional love. You know, I'm not making fun of you or anyone else when I say like unconditional love. It's not like love, like baby animals holding hands and cute things and everything like that. Like we like love and affection. And I definitely I hug my little dog quite a lot. But love is really a laser-focused force field of acceptance. And when something is a parasite, you accept what it is. It is not transformational. You do not love something in order to change it. So loving something would be like, I see that you're taking a bunch of money, being corrupt, and not giving back to the community. I'm taking your job away because you're not acting in the right way. That is love. That is actually a loving response. But to say, I see you're acting in a corrupt way, and instead I'm going to shower you with love and affection, send you flowers and chocolates, and I'm going to re-educate you and hope that you're going to act better towards everyone else. That is not love, because that is a requirement for change, is the antithesis of acceptance. So if I take and interpret your question about unconditional love in the way that I am, then I would say, yes, it is very helpful if you emit the frequency of unconditional love. It doesn't mean that everything is okay. It means that you set boundaries and you say, well, these are all the voluminous things that are not okay. And of all of these things that are not okay, I recognize that these are behaviors that aren't changing. It means that that person can't be here. They can't be in reality, or they can't be in a position of trust and responsibility. So because in relationships, people are very, very screwed up. And they're like, well, unconditional love means I could punch you in the face and you're still going to love me. No, that is not unconditional love. Unconditional love is like this. If you punch someone in the face, they're like, oh, I love and accept that you are a face puncher. And I don't want to be with the face puncher. Get the F out of my life. I protect myself from ever having that experience again. Got it? So psychopaths try to use this unconditional love thing to continue their psychopathological behavior and mind state and say, you got to love and accept me. Love me, love me. And I'm like, I do love you. I recognize that you are a very effed up person. I protect myself from you. I remove resources from you. And I pretty much reject you from participating in society, even to the point of we got to purge these guys off the planet. Between you and me, a lot of the stuff that we have to purge is actually alien, non-terrestrial energies, stuff that comes from Mars, psychopathology that comes from Mars and other places in an ancient sense, and also even more modern interdimensional and technological invaders that need to be purged from this world. When you see those things emitting lines of aerosols in your sky, that's an aerial assault by extraterrestrial interdimensionals. Like, your planet's been under assault for a very long amount of time. You got to get that stuff out of your world. And, that's a big job to get that stuff out of there. Katie says in capital letters, thank you. Really, really, you're so welcome. Says, I mean, everyone might perhaps die the way things are now. Also, the Y chromosome, shaking my head. I'm with you all the way. Before I talk about Y chromosome, Katie also says, for me, the clearing of the maggots is awareness of what they do. 87 million, a war bomb. It's so dumb. Totally, totally agree. You guys have to understand. It's very truthful. All of the wars are just excuses to expend ordnance in a very expensive way. Wars are about economy pumping. They are not even about proposed borders or motivations of nation states. Like, if you ask, what is this war really about? They're like, oh, we're fighting over a border. They're not fighting over a border. They are expending ordnance in a way that is expensive and serves the defense contractors, who are some of the major parasites that are a part of your government structure, and that all of this is orchestrated by the banking system, largely in this moment, the IMF, International Monetary Fund, World Economic Forum, NATO to a lesser extent. These are all like big, giant, impersonal, non things that are entities. These are nothings. These are not people. It's not like the king of the land of so-and-so is doing this. These are giant conglomerate entities that are the example of demonics in like the human world, and then humans defer to them and fund them. And of course, we do not want to directly fund them, but the governments are doing it indirectly with our money. The warden steals your cookies and then sends it to stupid NATO. I don't want NATO to eat my cookies. I want to eat my cookies. This is your interdimensional cookies of observership, of resources, of life. You got it? Now, it is a transformation of your own empowerment structure to say, you are more powerful than any of these nonsense financial wizards who run IMF or any of those things. They're all self-proclaimed leaders, but they are not real leaders at all. In fact, they have a lot less integrity and spiritual power and biophotons than you have. You have more light inside of you. You get to make reality. You make reality with your mind. You make reality with your expectations. You make reality with your deep passions and with your active pineal gland and the crystalline emanations of your pineal gland. These guys don't have active pineal glands. That's why they put this crapola in their own brains. I mean, my face says it all. It's crazy. But back to this thing that you were saying here. Y chromosome. Briefly, because I don't want to go too much into this and just drop a bomb in your lap and then can be like, good night, like ruin your life. Good night, everyone. Because it takes a lot of cognitive handholding to bring people through this mental structure and curate the experience at your reading level. Because I don't want you to think that I'm a man hater. And I don't want you to think that I want to execute, all males or anything like that. But there are psychopathological genes, genes for mental diseases that are about violence, violation, sexual violence, and other forms of non-respect of other people and of life that are housed on the Y chromosome. Don't shoot the messenger. Don't blame me. The Y chromosome is extremely troubled because it doesn't get proofread. The X chromosomes, when they're in the process of organization and mitosis, they get proofread. That's like in blockchain when you have the different nodes, and this node has one version of the transcriptions, and this is one version of the transcriptions, and they compare and they see, like, are there any errors? Are there any transcriptional errors, conflicts, or stuff like that? And then who is correct? And you end up with a final version that goes into the child that is the correct version of the chromosome. So that means you're getting rid of mutations and cancers and things that are junk DNA or things that are poorly written. But the Y chromosome is the only chromosome that does not go through that system. It is literally copied in its entirety from generation to generation, but it is like a duplication machine, like a Xerox machine. You lose information with every subsequent copy. There's transcriptional errors, formfulness problems, like the topological shape of how it's folded. There's problems with that. There's problems with the Y chromosome. And you can find actual 5 senses, objective materialist, scientific research about this. But it's rare because a lot of your research scientists have Y chromosomes, and they're heavily biased against investigating anything that might reflect poorly upon themselves or the implications of themselves. So just because you have a Y chromosome does not mean that you are a psychopath, but 100% of the genes for being a psychopath are found on the Y chromosome. And the Y chromosome has certain behaviors in wanting to be passed on to the next generation that motivate the sexual dynamics of your world, and also that have an impact upon the attacking of femaleness within the body. So when the Y chromosome is present and the life form is going to become a male, if the Y chromosome did not constantly suppress the X chromosome is bigger and louder, and it would make that organism a female. So there is a constant genetic internal conflict with people who have a Y chromosome that biologically they always have to assault the X chromosome or the innately female aspect of self just in order for their maleness to be expressed. They are at war with femaleness and the X chromosome. That is the essence of what we call misogyny or hatred of women. And you can see that evidenced in many unhealthy and dysfunctional social and religious and cultural structures in your world. What are misogynistic, what are male dominant, and what are patriarchal? Your world has not always been this way. Not only ancient Atlantis was a very different time, but pre-Pharaonic Egypt was a very different time. And that was a time when people did eat physical food and have physical babies, but it was not the patriarchy as you presently know it. It was actually a female-dominated world that had a completely different set of values and behaviors that are expressed. So please know that the solution to this is not to behead everyone who has a Y chromosome or some kind of cleansing on that level. It is a cleansing of the genes for pathology and a restoration of the correct form of the Y chromosome so that it is healed. And then also a cleansing of the erroneous and dysfunctional structures in your world. When I talk about your social dynamics and religious dynamics and things that are misogynistic, there are things that you can clearly see and know that you'd say, like, that's misogynistic, like that's against women. There are some things that you don't even think about because they've been so normalized that are misogynistic and not correct. And one of it is about males being the primary property owners. Females should be the primary property owners. That's it. There's no negotiations about that. Like, women have babies. Women have to have houses to house their babies. Women have to have be the owners of the houses that they house their babies in. That's it. Like there should be no negotiation. And any negotiation about this is anti-life and anti-society and anti the future. And instead, for a very, very long amount of time, you have had the men owning the houses, and then they own the women to live in their houses. And then if the women don't do the right thing, the women get, kicked out of their houses. Hold on one second. Oh, thank you. I just got a little. It's delivery. Sorry, it's okay, honey. It's okay. It's okay. Delivery. Cheeky. Women should own the houses, and women should actually be the primary property owners in your society. And women should be in control of who lives in the house. And that it sounds like a wild thing to say because it's not the way it's been for a very long amount of time. And that it causes a mental rearrangement when I say things like that. Because no, you're used to pretty much like, no, women stay home and take care of the babies and they do not earn money and they do not own property. Men go out and they do stuff and they sail across the ocean and they start businesses and they own all the money and they run all the companies and then they own all the houses. And then if you're good, then you get to live in a house that's owned by a man. And I'm like, no, none of that is right. None of that is the way it's actually supposed to be. But that's so normative in your world that I sound like a radical person to assert otherwise. But how would it sound if I said this to you? No, women should actually own and run all of the businesses. Women should actually own all of the property. Women should actually own all of the houses. And women should have the babies. And then women should determine whether or not they want their husbands or their partners or their boyfriends or their male family members to live with them in the houses. Well, if I say that, this can of worms is open. This is big stuff. This is, I'm poking all the sacred cows. When we start to talk about the Y chromosome, what needs to be healed there, how future generations of humans will be made in light bodies, and how things used to be done in ancient Atlantis, this is the giant elephant in the room. And I don't want males, or it's not my intention in this class, to diminish males. I don't want you to feel bad. I don't want you to feel like there's something inherently wrong with you or you're not good enough or any of that stuff. I don't just want to do a jujitsu of misogyny then being switched over and then hating on men. That is not going to help or fix anything. But this is very, very deep, important stuff. The reason why you have the abortion industry is because women do not own houses. Women kill their own babies because they do not have the financial resources to be able to be supported in their pregnancies. That is incredibly wrong. That being able to have a baby should not be a financial choice. And women also are, largely in the workforce, but are having to, prioritize having babies while being in the workforce at the same time. It is anti-women and anti-life and anti-family for women to have 3 months of maternity leave. And then while they're still lactating and taking care of their new baby, go off to work and put the kids in daycare. That is anti-women, anti-life, insanity, and not what you want at all. Because there is a biological truth that women need to be with their baby for the first year of the baby's life. You make the baby's food with your breasts. You're supposed to be there. So they're like, don't worry, we have technology. You can pump your breast milk and you can get back to work in 3 months. Get back to work, get behind a desk, do the things that are important to the corporate infrastructure. And I'm like that, none of that is right. But they're like this, what am I supposed to do? Take a year off from work and take care of my child and then return to work like some kind of a respected member of the society or something like that? No. Yes, exactly. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to take a year off from work, focus on your baby, come back when your baby's been weaned, and you know what? Bring your baby to work with you. There's a lot that needs to change. I'm here, like the ice is cracking. It's like when the ice cracks and then all these things change and rearrange. I'm hearing the ice cracking in your minds as I'm talking about these things to you. So you're recognizing that there are biological realities, things that have not been respected, entrenched harmful behaviors, and that the proposed solutions have been not effective. The proposed solutions have been, well, for women to go back to being trad wives, traditional wives, and they are baking sourdough bread, taking care of their babies, wearing long flowing garments, and they're men, bearded men, testosterone men, go out to work each day and bring home the paycheck and everything like that. And the only problem is, like, because of all of your effed up economy stuff, like a one income household doesn't work. And you can't afford to just like keep your wife on a farm and she stays home and takes care of the babies and the chickens. And then you go off to work and everything like that. Like, that was from 100 years ago. Like, that does not work in today's world. And they intentionally made it so that that doesn't work in today's world. And they intentionally made it that you have to have a two-person income. And that's why all of these trad wives are on Instagram, kind of getting paid through social media presence and things that they can do working from home. You're going to have to change everything. You're going to change everything, but you're going to have to change how people get money and who gets the money and what you prioritize. Just this can of worms will have to be ready for another time. But just if you open the floodgates on this, I will rant so hard. Like, your face is going to get melted off. Just get prepared. Yes. Okay, wait. Back here, Pedro says, for the people who sell the bombs, the dumb ones are the ones that pay for them. Yeah, of course. Of course, the defense industry is laughing all the way to the bank. They're like, ha, 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 we make these expensive ordnance and then they drop it on, civilian and uninvolved people and make a lot of explosions in the world. And then I run away happily counting my money. Like, it doesn't serve humanity at all. It's insanity. And you recognize that it's insanity. It was a bearable level of insanity for many hundreds of years. The insanity level has gotten to be unsupportable at this point, where you won't have a future unless you do something to change that. And Katie says, yeah, I think Musk is a Martian, definite Martian energy. Totally. So what's going on with Elon Musk? He comes from Mars. Literally, he is a Martian. He is not a native human at all. He also is very much an early adopter of all of this stuff. That's how he was able to make a lot of money. He didn't make a lot of money in freedom that he can now spend on his own. He made a lot of money for the AI and things that live through him. And then they tell him what he needs to do as the next thing. He follows that AI because his goal is to get enough money to be able to try to transport himself back to Mars, because he is manic. He is not connected to reality. He is still running that old primary motivation of the Martians, which is to get back to Mars. All of these unhealthy pathogenic presences that came to Earth are still trying to do that. But the problem is not, like, go back to Mars is not a problem. I am very much in support of that. Elon Musk, please go back to Mars. But I write this to him on his Twitter X all the time. I say, don't take our Earth resources to send yourself back to Mars. They got themselves here. Then they want to plunder our Earth resources, spend however many billions on these supposed rockets to be able to fly them back to Mars. And then all of the supportive infrastructure, because Mars is a dead wasteland. You're going to need a ton of energy and life force from Earth to try to terraform Mars to turn it into a place that is habitable again, which is also, again, insane to try to do and will not help anybody and will not lead to health and vitality, will lead to death and destruction, in more death and destruction. But I'm like this, you do you, I do me. You want to go back to Mars and cause death and destruction and die a horrible death, do it, but not with my resources. And then the other problem is that he's not only is trying to plunder the resources, get himself back to Mars and create some kind of a alternative civilization there, but he's putting Earth in a freaking prison. What do you think those satellites are? They are light body imprisonment. So he is serving the AI through all of this stuff that is in his neurology and doing the stuff that the AI wants in the hopes that he's going to get rewarded by getting a magical golden ticket to fly to Mars. And I'm like, stop putting garbage into our atmosphere and don't use my resources, and also get off of my planet. Thank you. Pedro wants to know, can we unmanifest? Absolutely. It's a huge aspect of what flying rainbow lasagna is, and I unmanifest all the time. I don't talk with you guys all about all of my ongoing efforts and what I do to protect this planet, but unmaking and unmanifesting is a huge aspect of what flying rainbow lasagna is. It is not only turning down the volume on certain genetic quotients, it can also be to take matter or energy out of existence, to entropize it, or to repatriate it, send it back to where it is supposed to be in the time field. Great question. And Katie also says they are more likely to get possessed than Y chromosome. Can't control its little worm. Its thing. I think I understand what you're talking about. There is definitely a distinction to be made between demonic possession or negative entity, lower astral portals and thought forms coming into our world, and just the regular, extremely dysfunctional behavior of the Y chromosome as it has degraded over time. Just to give you a little bit more science talk, even though I'm not a scientist at all, but there is a species of jumping rat that is in Japan that has lost its Y chromosome, but that does not mean that it is a 100% female species, and they still reproduce, and they still have sex. You're like, Aurora, none of this makes sense. Starting to get it. Genotype and phenotype. The expression of maleness as having what we describe as, like male genitalia, penis and testes, is formfulness that is not innately tied to the psychopathological presence of certain genes on the Y chromosome. So if your maleness is defined by psychopathological characteristics, that's the tendency to be aggressive and attack the innocent, non-righteous violence, or to violate, or to sexually violate. If that's what you define maleness as, then you will be losing your maleness when the Y chromosome is healed. But you are not necessarily going to lose your body form or your shape or your genitals or even the act of intercourse. But you know what you will have? You will have healthy intercourse, not the type of intercourse that is made as a quid pro quo in order to achieve resource security in a world that is largely misogynistic. It's going to be a complete change in the power dynamic because just, in your world, many over history, there have been arranged marriages, forced marriages, marriages of women or girls who are far too young to be able to consent. And then there are also marriages of convenience where women have married for social status, resources, and protection of their offspring. And none of these are the appropriate reasons to marry and partner and procreate with someone. You're supposed to do it because you love them, because you're attracted to them, and because you want to build a life together, and because you want to bring together your DNA heritages in the beautiful knitting together of the fabric of space-time tapestry, not because you want to have a house to live in. So very, very different motivations. I am not criticizing women who have done this because they need a house to live in, because you've been in survival mode. Women need to get out of survival mode. And males, I'm not going to say what you need to do, but I'm going to say that it is necessary to be able to do an inner archaeological excavation. Who is the real you? Who is your real personality and characteristics inside? What are genetic splicings and impositions that have been put upon males that then make them not even really even able to feel their true self and act as their true self in the world? You need to excavate your true self and even construct your true self as apart from the psychopathological structures that are formerly associated with maleness in society. War. The planet Mars and war we associate with maleness, and it is dysfunctional. It is not righteous. But I am not saying that we have to be completely neutered and nonviolent, not at all. And in fact, I am a protector of this planet as I am affiliated, from ancient concurrent Atlantis. Mars is making war on Earth, and I am fighting. I am not just like, well, I'm a girl, I can't fight. I'm like, no, I am fighting, and fighting for your planet is righteous. Invading someone else's planet is being a dick. Yeah, not okay. And I use that word vernacular very intentionally, and I don't usually talk like that. So apologies for kids who are listening. Pedro says, wait, I got that. Okay, so wait. Katie says, so anti-life, not for babies and moms, creators at all. Honestly, 2 years. 2 years, totally. Thank you, girls. I've never had an actual physical child, so I do not actually know about how long it takes to have a child, get your body and your hormonal structure back, into a positive state, like how to heal after pregnancy, how long is the postpartum state, and then also how long do you need to be breastfeeding and be there every moment for a child's development biologically. And Katie says 2 years. She says, it's so insane. Like, let's ignore everything here on Earth and go to Mars. What the hell? I know, totally. That's the other thing. It's the ultimate escapism. It's the ultimate, Calgon, take me away. And that's how everybody who's pro Mars is looking at it. They're like, oh, this world is so screwed up and blah, blah, blah. Just get me out of here. Fly away on a rocket ship and go to Mars. It's like, you know what? I joke about this. That movie, Jupiter Ascending. I have not seen very many movies because a lot of it is Hollywood trash. And this one is not any different. But when I watched that movie, I think I was even with friends, and I was like, I'm not impressed by this because it's all about like space and aliens and ascension and all this different stuff. And I'm like, this is not how ascended people act, and this is not how higher dimensional extraterrestrials act. I said, this movie is mommy issues in space. And it is. And that's what a lot of science fiction and a lot of these advanced, supposedly technological civilizations, that's what they are. They are mommy issues in space. And when I say that, I mean there is an inherent disrespect for and antipathy for the creative feminine presence, the ability to generate life, creation as opposed to destruction and war. And the idea of shooting lasers at each other is such an affront to light. Light is nourishing. Light is what you eat when you go through this transformative experience that I'm telling you about. When you come out the other side, you eat light. You do not shoot light at each other with lasers like pew, 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 or lightsabers. You do not use light in that way. That is not how you use light. It is such an affront. And that's what a lot of these science fiction stories are about. They're about wanting to own and control the creative generative principle and what you call the divine feminine, and then using light as a weapon to hurt each other. It's insane. It is totally out of balance. And I can't even. That's it. Next question, moving on. Avril says, I would happily chip in $20 for him to go back to Mars. Thank you. We'll start the fund. You can be the seed money of the fund to get Elon back to Mars, transportation fund, like the good riddance to bad garbage fund. I'm joking. He's telepathic. He's a synthetic augmented telepath. And he can hear you when you talk on Twitter. And I've talked with him about this a lot. Michelangelo says, thank you, Master Aurora Angel. You're so welcome. Thank you for that beautiful honorific. And Katie says, yes, exactly. They're so upset with presence. It's strange. And Unreal is laughing. Thank you for the lightheartedness. Something Elon, he's like a big target. It's like, hitting a barn wall. It's like, he's a very large ego structure. So I don't feel, it's not like I'm, attacking someone. You know what I mean? Like, I'm very aware of like bullying and personal attacks and things like that. Don't want it to seem as if I'm just taking pot shots at him. They are worthy and deserved criticisms of this guy who is acting like a maniac, but at times he does things that serve an agenda that seem to be convenient or positive. But I do not trust that guy, and he's done a lot of very screwed up things in the past. Joyce says, thank you, Professor. Much love and appreciation. Much love back to you. Thank you as a class. Thank you for allowing me or witnessing me and giving me the authenticity of my voice to be able to talk about these topics of the Y chromosome and the need to change and transform how maleness and femaleness interact on this planet. It is the most incendiary thing, and I have been very concerned about being rejected as a teacher by talking about these things in ways that would be considered socially, like a social inappropriateness. So thank you for being receptive to my voice And I would love to talk with you more. You know, I have the teaching about sexuality, like both healthy and unhealthy sexuality in this class for the advanced materials. There were some semesters where I was like, I don't even think I can talk about this stuff because I'm so concerned because it's so fraught. There's gay stuff, there's this stuff, there's that stuff, there's sexual position stuff. There's so many things that you can tell from my face. If you ask me the real questions about this, like, you're not going to like the answers. And it made it difficult for me to share. But from, receiving positive feedback, people have been like, yeah, no, tell us how you really feel and give us, the real viewpoint. All of my viewpoints are energetic, not cultural. That's why, just like when I'm critiquing of Judaism and Christianity, I'm critiquing of sexual dysfunction, I'm critiquing of social dysfunction and economic dysfunction in your world. I am literally an outsider, and I'm here not just to dump my displeasure upon you and to be like, oh, like you're all doing it wrong, but to reconstruct things in a better way. I'm really interested in planting the seeds of a conversation so that you can know, like, you're not doing things the right way. And I want you to do things in a better way. But I don't want to take away your freedom. I want to have you come to the self-knowledge that you want to do. You want to structure your culture in a better way. That is my goal. And to give you the empowerment so that you do reconstruct your culture in a better way and that you recognize this. So all of what I'm trying to do is change your viewpoint so that you can poke all the sacred cows, look at all the things and say all the things that are forbidden that you're not allowed to say, and then have a transformation and change things at the end. Someone out there is thinking about transgender stuff. And it's a very, very valid adjunct to this conversation about Y chromosome, because transgender is the changing of the appearance, but not of the genetic nature of the person. And there is so much wrapped up in there. And again, I don't want this to be a personal attack on anybody, their sexual identity or whatever they're going through. And sometimes people are very fragile, and I don't want anyone to be violent towards themselves or towards others. All right. So please know. But we have to have this conversation that is about the lack of self-acceptance of a person that has a Y chromosome, why they would want to have the appearance of someone that has an X chromosome, the search for identity validation in society, the ways in which identity validation has turned into a form of social bullying towards those who aren't accepting, to force acceptance, and then the backlash to all of that is a very, very big conversation to be had there. And I'm very sensitive to it. I do have personal friendships and relationships with people who are genuinely intersex and who came into the world as an amalgamation between male and female and have then had many challenges in walking through the world. And I don't include them in this conversation because I think that they are healthy and unique specimens in a very sexually dysfunctional world. But then there's an entirely different class of people who are clearly male and have been clearly saturated with the male hormones, who are then wanting to change their structure and their viewpoint into being a female. And we have to ask about, like, why is that? What is that all about? Why is that influencing humanity? What are the motivations on that? And that is really not healthy, good stuff. There's definitely agenda stuff behind that. And so again, with the greatest levels of respect and compassion, there's a conversation to be had about that at all, about the mental health, the emotional health, the social appropriateness of some of the things that have been presented as normative in our world, and especially as it now relates to children who are young and prepubescent being exposed to not only these ideas, but these procedures and limitations on them, because that's part of a negative pathway of a future where everyone is sterile and no one has physical babies, and human life is generated in a different way. That's the negative inverse. Like, I'm telling you, there's going to be a future where you will have babies or new people in a different way than you ever have before. and it's not having internal vitro fertilization or creches. I didn't say that word right, but any of these artificial fertilizations, creches, implantations, or artificial ways of having babies. That is actually not life affirming. And also, we're not going on the timelines where humans become like gray aliens through genetic degradation and the implantation of additional android-like hardware just to be alive. These are sterile futures. So the problem with transing kids is it makes them sterile. And the problem with these things, it inflicts harm on the follicular stimulating hormone and is causing low sperm motility. It is bringing humanity towards a dead end of sterility. And you really want to go in a different direction where you have a viable species and a viable future, but where you're not still doing the same thing that you were before. So this all does relate what we're talking about right now with the economy, the gender stuff, biological reproduction, male, female stuff, Y chromosome stuff. This all really does relate to the topic of the curriculum manifestation in the world that you're manifesting. Do you want to manifest the timelines that are of sterility, dead ends, or species cul-de-sacs, where you go, but you can't go any further? Or do you want to manifest timelines that are viable and, I want to say voluptuous, like fruitful, abundant timelines, where your bodies are healthy and you're transforming into light beings, and you're also being restored to your full capacitation of what it is to be a light being, what it is to be ascended, because there's so much good stuff there. Yes. And also, if you want to know where I'm at in my journey, so like being a parent is not a part of my journey, but I'm very respectful, celebratory, and supportive of people who are parents in this world and who are doing like homeschooling their kids and trying to give their kids the best non-genetically modified food and trying to get the pathogens and parasites out of the dynamics of the world of young people so that they can have a clear mind and create the futures going forward so that they have a chance and they create a better world. I'm very, very supportive of parents who are trying to protect their children and bring forward a better world. Pedro says, love the manifested lasagna. Gracias, maestra. You're very welcome. And Elmer says, thank you so much, Professor. You're so welcome. And Joyce, thank you as well. And Katie says, okay, this will be our last one. Says, yes, these conversations are so needed and talk about how people are being exploited sexually. Thank you, Aurora. You're very welcome. She says, it's so bad for their organs, their heart. It stunts them in many ways. Absolutely. The hormone blockers and other forms of, it's really like hormonal violence being done to children. They have lifelong implications. And so the things that are being done to children are in vogue right now, but in 10 or 20 years, they will no longer be the style, but the children's bodies that are now going to be adult bodies are going to have a huge amount of healing and rectification because they haven't grown as tall. Their brains haven't developed in many ways. Their neurologies are affected so much. And Katie also brought up people being exploited sexually. We'll end on this. There is a huge unhealed wound. When I read on Twitter X, which, Elon Musk, that's pretty much like his sub and super conscious, everyone there is still talking about Pizzagate. Everyone there is still talking about the need for the Epstein files to come out and for there to be genuine prosecutions. This is the parasite purge. When you want to know, like, what do you need to do in order to move forward in your world? You need to prosecute the overt criminals who were harming people sexually, specifically children, but also many different classes of women. All of these missing Indigenous women across North America. So many people have been consumed by these monsters, and you have to have a purge, an emotional purge of those who have been hurt, a restoration of those who have been hurt, and a prosecution of the people that did this stuff. And I'm not allowed to say certain things on Twitter. I actually got a content strike because I said something that's perfectly truthful, which is that the punishment for treason is death. And this is regarding some of these higher level government people who betrayed the original ideals of the United States and also their oaths of office in committing treason. That just happens to be a 100% overlap to the people that eat babies. They just happen to be the same people. Prosecute them for treason. You've already heard what the punishment is for that. And Twitter sent me like a notification, like, you're not allowed to say that. So it's not a 100% free speech area. And apparently that's still a relatively radical thing to say. But that is what you need. You need that for your collective healing. You need that to purge the parasites. You can't have these people sitting around drawing a pension. You cannot pay the pension for baby eating parasites for them to live in luxurious mansions and write autobiographies in their retirement. Okay. Katie says, 1,000% agree. I had to count the zeros. It's actually like 1,000,000% agree. So thank you for that. Thank you. Yeah, I also feel like I wish that I could just have a full-on rant and use all of my vocabulary words, but I can't always do that and still be, I would be deplatformed off of YouTube if I actually do that. So we should have a get-together sometime that's just in a way that we can talk without having to be selective about language. Cece, thank you for being here. Says a huge thanks and muchísimas gratitude for your presence and the teachings we're receiving. So very welcome. Thank you again. Thank you as a beautiful class. I am connected to the best human beings on this planet. Thank you for your integrity. Thank you for your goodness. Thank you for being open to the ideas and the energy that I bring in and for being open to a completely new way of recalibrating, a completely new way of doing things. And you're very brave and being willing and very authentic in being willing to have this conversation, because that is how real growth occurs. So it will happen. We'll have more conversations around these topics. It's an ongoing project. It actually wears on me a lot. I feel it very, very deeply. Pedro says, can we manifest our own champion? Do you mean a champion like someone who fights for you like a gladiator? Tell me more. What does it mean to be a champion? Like there's that Freddie Mercury song, all the champions, my friend. Avril says, if you attended the flight last week on Solstice, thank you for helping to take down the darkness. You are welcome. And yes, I did, actually, along with several other people that I brought who are also amazing warriors in training. Pedro says, yes, kind of. Can you manifest your own champion? In many ways you have. I am your champion, guys. And I'm here in order to fulfill that role of what needs to be done in this world that hasn't been done by either like some Christ network or benevolent aliens or the sun itself or angelics or whomever it is. I'm very, very pleased to perform that needed service here. And also, I want you to feel that each one of you becomes the champion of the world too, not just like in the sense of winning a game, but a champion from the world of ancient mythology. The champion is one who fights for righteousness. You fight for the representation of what you believe in. I would like for each one of you to become the champion that you would like to manifest in terms of utilizing your psychic powers, your divine connection, and your willpower, and your heart and your love to be able to fight for righteousness and to be able to fight for your own planet. A big part of who and what I am. I'm a protector of this planet, and I fight to protect the innocent, and I fight to protect you so that you can grow up and evolve and develop the capacity to protect yourself. So please, let's think about it in that way. When I fight, and I fight all the time, I fight for you, and also I fight for your capacity to become bigger, stronger, and eventually to clear all of these pathogens out of your world yourself. And Pedro says, okay, we get the master we need, not the warrior we think we want. Well, you got a warrior as well. There's a lot of things that I don't share that I can't talk about, but that are going on. Please know that they're going on. And Cece says, we have collectively manifested all that which we're now experiencing. Totally. I want you to know, this is ascension gone awry, but it's actually not, because when you're ascending, all of this energy is flowing into the planet. And just like when you put energy into a parasite-ridden situation, the parasites eat a lot of energy. A lot of your ascension energy has been siphoned off You need to reclaim all of that energy. You need to get rid of the parasites and claw back the energy that they blood sucked off of you and then put it towards your ascension. So in a lot of ways, this is a battle for your planet. It's a battle for your ascension. It's a battle for your future. And if you do it right, you resolve all of this effing bullcrap right now, and then you don't have to do it again in another time cycle, in another time place, in another negative time loop. It is really done. No more sweeping things under the carpet, and definitely not to simply eject something off of your planet to go elsewhere. You know, I joke about Elon Musk, like, yeah, go back to Mars. Like, you know, we don't want you here. But actually, you know what I want? I want it all resolved. Because the truth is, like, he broke into your house. And to just be like, well, I'll just kick you out of my house. What do you think he's going to do? If he broke into your house once, do you think he's just going to sit there on Mars and be like, now I'm perfectly happy to be on Mars? Or do you think he's going to try to break in again? This is a real question. What do you think happens when you have a crackhead neighbor that tries to come into your house and you just send him away? Do you think he stops once, or do you think he does it again? I think he does it again. And that's why I very much agree with what is Texas justice. If you invade, if you come across boundaries, if you come into my house, I will finalize it. I will end it, because you're only going to make that mistake once. I'm not going to give you another chance to make that mistake again. Please know that I'm not advocating. This is not in any way advocating for physical violence against Elon Musk or his cars or his factories or anything like that. Like, please know that that's not what I'm saying. Pedro says, I mean, the warrior fights for us. The master says, this is how we fight. Follow me. Thank you for that clarification. That is very much how I want it to be. It would be simplistic for me to just fight for you guys and be like, sit in your high chair, kids. You just eat some Cheerios. Like, I'll take care of all of this. And like, I'm mom, like driving the bus, right? And you just kind of like fight in the background. And I'm like, no, actually, that would not be acceptable, because it is my role to do this here. But at a certain point, you guys need to be focusing on your own planet and your own boundaries and protecting yourself. So like, I haven't been a mom to a physical child, but when you're a parent, you build the immune system of your child. Like, that's what breast milk is all about and why it is superior to formula. You're helping to protect your child. I feel very much like I'm helping to protect this planet so you can build your own immune system against consciousness, pathogens, and parasites, and then grow into a strong, healthy adult, so you can fight that crap out of your world, and then even go off and protect the innocent even more. So that's everything that I do in this planet has been about not just the mere expediency of getting rid of bad stuff and getting rid of parasites, but also not cutting corners, making sure that you get your training, that you get your opportunity for personal growth and empowerment, because that the idea is that you are self-sufficient at a certain point. That's one of the greatest things that you can do for someone else, is to help to lift them up into empowerment and self-sufficiency. And these are all Christ ideals. As Christ, we fight to protect the innocent. We fight in righteousness. We do use violence. And then we also teach and help for you to be able to protect and defend yourself. And that way, this doesn't happen in future generations. Okay, so thank you so much for that, everyone. I'm going to end our class for today. Thank you so much for everyone who's been here and everyone who catches the archive. And yeah, I'm going to take Cheeky for a walk or give her some food or something like that. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Profound love and gratitude. Thank you. Thank you, Alex.